amazing speakers today, well, is only getting better, folks. So, the best part for me today has been getting out there and meeting so many of you. Now, I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. coinbureau fans are the best. I don't know how many of you I've met today. Not enough, but I have met a lot of you. I met so many coinbureau fans in Miami last month. People occasionally come up to me on the street and say hi and how much they enjoy the channel and the work that we do. And it's weird because every single one of them is so lovely, so friendly, so supportive of everything we do. Like, I have yet to meet any coinbureau fan I wouldn't happily stand there and talk to for hours. So guys, give yourself a great big round of applause because you are, all of you, awesome. And I should say as well, we make the content that we make it for you. And I also want to give, at this point, a shout out as well to the wonderful coinbureau team, because, yeah. We're lucky enough to have some of them with us here today. Others are elsewhere working away because it never stops. It never stops. But I'm in such a privileged position because I get to be the front end. I get to be, you know, the guy who everyone recognizes. And the work that goes into the videos, the work that goes in to getting me up on screen chattering on about crypto is just insane. And I just want to say how grateful I am to all of those guys. They're not really, they don't expect any sort of acknowledgement, anything like that. They just get on with their job. They are the best. I couldn't do it without them. We couldn't bring you the sort of content that we know you deserve without all of their input. So, once again, coinbureau team. Woo! Woo! I'm not going to start whooping, oh my word. So, when I was out there chatting with some of you earlier today, a couple of people said to me, it's like, this is great, but wouldn't it be better if the market was looking kind of healthier? You know, do you remember when Sol was $250? Do you remember when Solana worked? And I've been thinking about it, and no, because the market is what it is. We're in for a lot of volatility, folks. This is a tough time. This is not for the faint-hearted. We know that. Crypto is not for the faint-hearted, and we are living through a tough time at the moment. Like I said in my speech today, the world we live in at the moment is just crazy. But talking to people in the industry and talking to people here today, there's so much development, there's so much innovation, there's so much progress, and yes, there is so much investment going on in the crypto space, happening that the markets are just not pricing in at all. Crypto is unstoppable now. And these next few months, sure, they may be a little rocky, they may be a little turbulent, but we're going to ride them out. And crypto is going to get stronger all the time. If in doubt, zoom out. That's all the hopium you're going to get, okay? We don't do hopium here at the Coin Bureau. Now, something that I do want to talk about, though, and something that strikes me so much, one of the things that strikes me most about the current state of the crypto industry, one of the biggest problems we face as a sector, as an industry, is a shortage of developers. we literally cannot build this thing quickly enough. And it's a tricky problem because developers are waiting in the wings, and we've been so lucky we've been able to chat with people like the Cambridge Blockchain Society here in the UK, and I'm aware that so many other universities across the world are waking up to the potential of blockchain and offering courses on it. And this shortage is going to be addressed in the long term, but short term it's going to be tricky. But the crypto industry needs more than just developers. And if you're here today, and if you're asking yourself whether you have the skills to be a part of the crypto industry, folks, there's a good chance the answer is yes. Now, at the Coin Bureau, we're always looking for ways to expand. We're always looking to see how else we can serve this industry that we love so much. And one of the projects that I'm really excited about is Coin Bureau Recruitment. Now, this is something that we've been setting up over the last few months. We've been making use of our contacts in the industry to get a recruitment arm going that we can get more people into the space, because that is what it needs, and it needs people like you. And we're very lucky today. We've got some of Coin Bureau Recruitment's finest with us. They are over there at the back, and I'm going to introduce you to one of them in just a moment, because he's going to tell you a little bit more about what CBR does. But I just want to ask a favor of all of you, anyone, even just considering maybe working in the crypto industry, go and have a chat with those guys. Leave them your details. Leave them your CV, because crypto needs people, and it needs people like all of you. So, Sam, where are you? I'm going to pass you over just for a couple of minutes to Sam Jenkins, Coin Bureau Recruitment. Sam, hit him.
Cheers, Guy. And nice to see some chairs, so everyone's sitting down for the second half. And Guy summarized it pretty well in terms of the demand and what's going on in the space. It's not just about one person building something, it's everyone coming together and using the skills that they've got to help build the future. So what we've seen is demand across technical, financial, legal, operations, you name it, there's a job opportunity for you in this space. And we've all seen the money, we've all seen the potential hiring capabilities that these companies have. And what I'm here to do today is really just tell you, if you want to be part of this, you can be. And whether you leverage your current role, career, hobby, and you take a little bit of time out of your week to write a blog, a piece of content, to write some code, just contribute. Just be part of it, because you're the ones who are going to benefit from this technology. And you're the ones that have come today to see this event and be part of this event. So be part of the future and try and get involved with something you're passionate about. From that point onwards, the rest will take care of itself. So guys, we're sitting over there. If you've got anything that you want to chat to us about your career, how you can transition, how you can take that step into a Web3 crypto blockchain business, come and have a chat with us, and we'll be happy to help you or point you in the right direction. That's it for me.
What's that?
Luna's not coming on.
Okay. Okay. Guys, we will be back with you very soon. Thank you, Sam. We're going to be back with you very soon with some of our speakers, and we've got some really cool people coming up. I'm going to be chatting with Rob from Digital Asset News. We've got Maren Altman coming up. We've got some awesome people. So bear with us a few minutes. We'll be back with you. But I just want to give a shout out to some very, very important people who are here today, and that is all of you. Thank you. How you guys doing? Sorry to keep you waiting. In a change to our scheduled programming, we're going to mix up the schedule a little bit just to keep you all on your toes. So, I want to start things off. I want to introduce someone who I have been watching for a long time now, and I've had the pleasure of actually meeting for the first time today. He's a lovely guy. He's so knowledgeable. He is an amazing, amazing person to have contributing to the crypto space. So please, will you give a great big London welcome all the way from El Paso, Texas, Rob from Digital Asset News!
All right, all right.
All right, Rob.
Hold on, first, give it up for Guy and his team. Aren't they doing a great job at this event? This is an amazing, to get everybody out here, fantastic work.
Man, I went a bit out of myself for the welcome there. I thought I had to give you a kind of all-American welcome. I hope that didn't kind of throw you off too much.
It was full of bravado and no Western skies. I'll take it. I like how you did that.
I was fulfilling a long-held dream. Rob, it's so good to have you with us today. Thank you for coming all this way.
Yeah, it was a quick trip. I got to do a little vacation. Got to come here for London. I've never been to London. It's a beautiful place. Me and the wife. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Going to Italy after this. And I mean, what else are we going to do? Are we just going to keep looking at our portfolios all day long? Not something we want to do. So let's just get together and then fill each other up with a little bit of hopium and reality. So here we are.
That's right. That's right. We're gonna tell it to you straight, ladies and gents. So this discussion is kind of titled, well, we were going to talk about crypto tax, weren't we? We were going to kind of start off with that. It's boring. It's boring but necessary, folks.
Yeah.
You'll thank us later. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then I think we'll just have a kind of chat about the situation we find ourselves in right now. I'm just going to let Rob do most of the talking because I don't know about you, but I just love listening to his voice amongst everything else.
Yeah, it's all voice. It's not face. We'll take it.
So, Rob, before we go on, can you tell us a little bit, for anyone who doesn't know, can you tell us a little bit about you and about how you got into doing what you do and your kind of situation at the moment?
Yeah, I'm pretty much like everybody here. I mean, we got into crypto because we saw a pretty good opportunity. And in the beginning, I mean, when I was younger, no one taught me about investing. Definitely not my parents and definitely not the schools. So when I got out of high school, the first thing I did was go to the Army. I became a 91 Bravo, which is an Army medic. And then I got out and went into management and then found myself just doing entrepreneur type of things. And as time went on, I realized that I couldn't trade my time for money, so I had to get into some kind of assets and do something that I actually appreciate. I think that's why we are all here right now. That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. It's great. And when did you start? When were you like, right, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a YouTube channel.
So, well, before the YouTube channel, I remember it was in 2014, when you started investing.
Yeah, 14.
My son came home from high school and he said, hey, I got a great opportunity. I got 500 Bitcoins for $500 in this hard drive. And I said, what's a Bitcoin? And he tried to explain it to me, and I go, Alan, that makes absolutely no sense. That'll never take off. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. And I let 500 Bitcoins go all those years ago, and just 2-3 years later, I realized, wow, that was the biggest investing mistake I could have made. But here we are, and in 2017, I got into crypto, just like I think. You know what, let me, just a quick question for everybody here. Who here has been investing in crypto since 2011? Anybody? Jeez, I got to talk to you. 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. Ooh. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here are my guys. 2018, 19, 20. Yes, ooh. 21.
Look at that.
22. I'll talk to you later. So look, real quick, if you just got in 2021, I understand your pain. Because, I mean, guys started investing in 2014 after 2013. I got in 2017 and lost, in 2018, 70% down. So I know when you see guys like me on the stage, You're like, why is that guy laughing? Why is that guy so happy? It's not because I'm ecstatic about the market that we're in. It's just because I know exactly what's going to happen because I've already been there. So if you are just sitting around right now and you're in 2021, you realize, like, shoot, I got to tell my significant other the portfolio went down this much. As time goes on, things will work themselves out and the market will rebound. The question is when. And I can't tell you that because I have no crystal ball. I just try to give you the most facts that I can give and just give you a little bit of perspective without too much hopium. And that's why I like being here with Guy, because he does the exact same thing.
Yeah, you're right. And do you know something that I've talked about a lot with people over the years? You know, people say, especially when I talk about the history of Bitcoin, you know, the early days of crypto, it's like, oh man, imagine if you got into Bitcoin when it was 5 cents, or imagine if you got into Bitcoin under $1, or ETH at the crowd sale. And I always think, yeah, there's obviously some people got in there, but so few of them have held on. Because, I mean, I remember Bitcoin going to $1,000, and I remember thinking, surely people must be selling now. Like, that's it. People are going to take those profits. Who could have possibly imagined that it would climb any higher? I mean, $1,000 at the time just seemed insane, really.
No, yeah, and the same thing, like, so today we're sitting at, what's the price of Bitcoin? I'm sure somebody knows here. Yeah, it's pretty
35.
awful. So imagine what this is right now. Imagine like 3 or 4 or 5 years what the price of Bitcoin could be. Because I remember in 2017 when I first got in, I remember listening to Roger Ver, remember? And he would tell us, he would say, or even McAfee would say where it's going to go to. And I was like, there's no way it can go to 10,000, 20,000. And 30,000 was ridiculous. And now here we are out here. And it's not just, of course, Bitcoin. There's some pretty great projects out there as far as altcoins. But just to get there, it's hard to even think about. And at some point, it will rebound. The question is when.
The question is when. Answers on a postcard, people. So, Rob, so let's talk tax, okay? Because I think when so many of us started off in crypto, we just thought, tax, that's fine. Nah, they don't know how to tax it. We'll be all right. And now, I mean, it's a sign of how much the industry has grown, hasn't it? Yeah. The fact that the regulators, the fact that the IRS in America, HMRC here in London, boo, here, yeah, can we just get a boo for HMRC? Oh, really rich baritone there as well. I love it. It's an indication of how far this industry has gone. That they want to tax it now, and people are now asking themselves, how can I maximize my gains? How can I minimize my tax? And Rob, I mean, you've walked the walk on this one. Am I right?
Yeah, I've tried. So first of all, when me and Guy talked about this, like what we want to talk about, this couldn't be the most boring subject of all time. Just on paper, just to say, let's talk about tax. Nobody cares about that. It's just a big snooze fest. But if you think about it, there's a couple of things. First of all, look how far we've come since all those years ago, 2009, 2010, when politicians would even talk about it. Governments didn't even know what it was. And then all of a sudden, now they're talking about, well, we'll make it a legal tender, and also we're going to tax it. So when people talk to me about how crypto and digital assets are just going to go away, I'm like, no, they won't. No, they won't, because there's too much money to be made by taxing crypto and digital assets. Do you think that countries and governments and politicians are going to let that kind of money go? Are you out of your mind? So they're going to tax it, and that's just how it is. So the real question then is, how do you minimize your taxes? And I see a lot of heads shaking right now. So let's just say that you could go someplace. What's the capital gains tax here?
Capital gains. Do you have capital gains? Capital gains tax, yeah. Yeah, we got CGT, all right.
How much, 30, 20?
I think it's about 20% if you're in a higher bracket.
So let's say, well, let's do some quick math. You make $1 million, and 200,000 goes directly to the government. How's that sound?
Boo.
Or let's say you have in a corporation that you have to have taxes. In the US, it's between 20 and 35%. On top of that corporation, that gets taxed. Well, that's a bummer, right? Well, what if I told you there's a place where instead of you paying the government 20% in capital gains tax, you pay them this much. You pay 0% in capital gains tax. And then let's say you have an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, and instead of paying 20 or 35%, you pay this much, 4%. That sounds good, right? So instead of you actually paying the government, you get to keep all that money. Doesn't that sound fantastic? Now here's the catch. So if you can do that, all you got to do is move to a place. I'm like, oh, okay, that's all right, because I'm all the way up here. But if I got to move to a place, I got to move my family, I got to give up some of my friends, I got to stay in a certain place, and I got to go through a lot of regulations or different things that I have to do, it becomes sometimes not the greatest thing ever. But however, I'll just say it like this. What I did was I moved to Puerto Rico. And me and my wife talked about it. And I said, look, if we can move to Puerto Rico and pay 0% in capital gains tax for all the investments that we did, it's almost like the government is telling me, we're going to pay you to move. And that's essentially what happened, and that's what we did. So that's the long and short of capital gains tax, moving to different places. And there's other places. There's Portugal. There's the UAB. Where else?
Dubai.
Dubai is a great place. And
Malaysia. I think Malaysia's pretty
Malaysia as well,
isn't it?
But the thing is, though, as for people who are like want to try to minimize these taxes, it really comes down to this: planning. Because right now we're not in the greatest market, right? I mean, me and Guy are going to talk about bear versus bull in a little bit, I think. But if we're not in the greatest market, wouldn't it behoove ourselves to plan these things out now before we get to a point where, I mean, God forbid we're all multimillionaires. How awful would that be? But if we are all multimillionaires and we have to pay all these taxes, would that be okay? Or maybe, instead of like making the multi-millions, maybe it's 100,000, 200,000. And then we're looking at 40% of taxes. So to make these plans now is just like your investment strategy that you're doing, whether that be trading on leverage, which, sure, if you want to do that, it's not my thing. Swing trading, dollar cost averaging, or just sitting and holding and buying and holding. I think the time to really think about these things is today, because I got to tell you, in 2017, I didn't think I would be moving to Puerto Rico and minimizing taxes and trying to move funds around and have a YouTube channel and talking to Guy over here. I just didn't think it would happen, and it comes up pretty fast. So if you're going to think about it right now, because that day is coming faster than you think.
Forewarned is forearmed, people. Robert, yeah, it's so interesting to hear you talking about that, having taken this step yourself. And we were discussing earlier, weren't we? A lot of people just think, oh well, I'll just move. I'll just up 6. Portugal sounds nice. Puerto Rico sounds. I like the sound of Puerto Rico.
Oh, you got to come. It's great.
Can I ask? Is the swimming pool in your video? Is that in Puerto Rico?
No, both of those are green screens. I'm just kidding. Every asset, if the pools are, no, they're not. So we have the house in Puerto Rico. It's just our backyard, and then the one in El Paso we've had that house for 18 years or so. So
wow.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what it is.
But there is so much planning involved, isn't there? Because you have kids, you have a family, and
4 kids, 2 grandkids.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not easy.
And so this idea of upping sticks. I mean, I'm sure there are single people out there amongst us, or maybe part of a couple who just think, yeah, let's do this, let's go. But I think for a lot of people out there, there's so much to consider. You're okay, so you're moving to this place, you're going to pay a whole lot less tax, but where are the kids going to go to school? What sort of lifestyle are they going to have out there? To say nothing of what you guys are going to do.
It's just something to think about. Like, I think people here in London, you wouldn't have any problem with the driving in Puerto Rico because it's the exact same. It's like people just, everything's just like a suggestion of where you want to go, and then they just go. That's exactly how it is in Puerto Rico.
After you.
Yeah, after you. No, they're all over the place. And then, so then you got to think about like, well, do I want to uplift my family, and do I want to move there? Because in Puerto Rico, I've met a bunch of crypto OGs that are there, and they've told me the same thing. They're like, you know what? It sounded good at the time, but there's sometimes I wish I wouldn't have done it because of family or other issues with businesses or things like that. So if you're going to move to these places like Portugal or something like that, then for crypto or tax minimization, just think about it real hard before you do it. But I will tell you, it is nice on the pocketbook and the bank accounts if you can do it. But again, it's all about planning and getting there to that next step.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Rob, let's talk about the market, shall we? Let's talk about the state we find ourselves in at the moment. Now, I saw you on the channel the other day. I've seen you a few times. You're saying we're in a bear market.
Well, yeah, I think, and you have to remember something, is that me and Guy, mostly me, I'm not going to be 100% correct. I have no crystal ball, and all the different people that are out there that'll tell you like it's going to go to the moon, it's going to be the most fantastic hopium thing of all time, they have no idea either. So when I say these things, I can just tell you what my experiences are and where I see things going, but I could be wrong. Right now, I see it's a very bearish sentiment out there. And if we take a look at the definition of say, a bear market, we're taking a look at, just look at a definition, 20% drop from all-time highs within a certain period of time frame. Then we take a look at also the sentiment that is out there. And besides this room of all you people, I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty bullish. You think it's going to happen. It's great. But there's a larger ecosystem of investors out there. And I can tell you the sentiment, greed and fear index, is still hovering around, depending on the day, between 22 and 28, which is pretty low. So the sentiment is there, the all-time high drop, I think 69,000 to, where are we at now, 35? Maybe we're at, yeah, around 38, 37%. So if it's not a bear market, Lord help us. I would hate if this is the bull market.
Okay, I told you we weren't in the hopium business, ladies and gents. Yeah, I hear what you say, Rob. I think there's a lot of bearish sentiment out there. The indicators, and yeah, I should say as well, I have absolutely no guarantee that I will be right either. I mean, this is the tricky thing, isn't it? You know, people look to us for advice, and they look for us for, I guess, answers a lot of the time. One of the things that I've noticed most about the channel when we put a video out, especially kind of off our main channel, one of the things that always does really well is when we do a kind of emergency market update. You know, sometimes we'll do it on Coinbureau Clips, our kind of second channel. Sometimes we'll put it out on TikTok or Instagram or something like that. It always amazes me how much, you know, when the market takes a dip, how much people they want some answers. They want to know why their portfolio is in the red. Why?
Yeah, and so like every time the market drops, it's the same thing. Like we think we know the reason, but there's a lot of different reasons out there. It's like Socrates says, you know, I know nothing. I mean, and the older that I get, I realize just how much I do not know. But I will say that I know that there's some indicators behind the drops, but the grand scheme of things is the exact same. The crypto market is strong. It will be strong. It will continue to grow. We're at a 1.8 trillion market cap. Do you know what the market cap of gold is? It's like $11 trillion. How about the stock market? It's $100 trillion. How about real estate? It's $292 trillion. How about derivatives? It's $1 quadrillion. That's a real number. I had to look that up. Quadrillion. So when I see the things and the problems that crypto can solve, it's always the same thing. I mean, right now it's a bad day. It's a bad week. It's a bad month. It's about quarter. But in the long run, 1, 2, 3, 5 years, I think we're all going to be happy that we are where we're at.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. As I said earlier, I'm sort of with you, Rob. I think, like I say, the bearish sentiment is out there. I think there are a lot of factors suggesting we're not there yet. We could go lower. I mean, we're still setting higher lows. We're still seeing so much investment, like I was talking about earlier. And one other thing that I noticed, especially from this was from some of my conversations I had with people in Miami, talking to some of the people there, and obviously the Miami conference was it was so corporate focused. Everyone was there to do a deal. It was extraordinary. But a lot of what I think is going unreported at the moment, or that we're perhaps not paying enough attention to, is the amount of adoption that is going on in other countries, in places like Asia, Latin America, Africa, and it kind of falls off the radar a little bit because a lot of the time this is just people, maybe buying $10 worth of Bitcoin, transacting in really small amounts that aren't going to set the world on fire, that aren't going to make the headlines anytime soon. But the thing is that there are hundreds of millions of people doing this. There are people working on creating exchanges that are compliant with Sharia law. It's extraordinary. And the growth that is going on kind of under our noses, I think this is the big unreported story at the moment.
Well, I mean, this is why, I know there's a lot of technical analysis people out there, and that's for you traders way smarter than me. But when I take a look at it, that's why I like to read the news, take a look at the news, listen to listen to other YouTubers, just to keep myself abreast of what is going on behind the scenes. Because remember, 2014, there was no governments talking about it. There was no institutions getting it. There was no talk of legal tender. That's ridiculous. 2017, 18, 19 was the same thing. 2020, now we get the Paul Tudor Jones. We get the hedge funds. We get the legal tender. And not just in one country, not in El Salvador, but in Central Africa, the Republic of Central Africa. So if we take a look at the things that are going on, the rails are being built, I think there's just a couple of things that need to get done so we can move to that next step. And one of those, this is not going to go over well.
Try it anyway, Rob.
Is just a little regulation. Just a little bit of clarity about what it is. All we got to deal is what's a commodity? What's a security? What is a currency? If the OCC can take one part, if the CFTC can take the other part, and if Gary Gensler can ever get and figure out what he wants to do and call whatever he thinks is security, then we can move forward and these institutions can actually make some things happen. The problem is just getting that over the hump. I don't think Gary's the guy to do it, and I will say, when Gary first got elected to commissioner, I was like, this guy's going to be great because he taught at MIT, and I was super duper wrong about that one.
We had such high hopes of Gary, didn't we? Gary, you let us down, man. No, it's been a huge disappointment. I mean, I think I get the impression that Gary Gensler is, he's not only there's this sort of regulatory salad over in the States, isn't there? As you say, you've got the OTC, the CFTC, all these different bodies. Everyone's kind of fighting for a slice of that regulatory pie, but I get the impression also at the time kind of fighting to not get a slice of that pie.
Yeah, because I mean, here's the thing, if you're resting on money, where are you going to put your money right now? Well, you can leave it in money. That's what my grandparents told me. Put it in a savings account at 8.5% inflation. Sounds like a plan. Not a good plan. Oh, so what else do you put it into? Well, we can do into the hyperinflated market for equities. What's going to happen there? I think we know what's going to happen. And what about real estate? Me and my wife invest into real estate. It's a great investment tool. But right now, everything is so hyperinflated there, too. How can you get into real estate? So where do you put your money? Well, if there was a little bit of regulation, tell us where to go. And I think if there was some clarity, maybe then these big institutions that are sitting on the sidelines that are just doing things by proxy, investing in a microstrategy, can say, you know what? I know what I want to do. I don't want to keep it in money because it's a melting iceberg. I want to put it into crypto and digital assets because it's a big asymmetrical bet. This is the problem, though, and we can't get over that hump.
Man, it's evolving so quickly. Everything's happening so fast out there. And I mean, do you think, is it fair to say that the most powerful man in crypto right now is Jerome Powell?
I think it's Guy from coinbureau.
I told him to say that. It was a condition of coming over. He has to say that.
Checks in the mail.
No, I mean, here we are. How many of you could have imagined just a few years ago paying such close attention to what the Fed is doing. It's like we're all kind of metaphorically crouched outside the door of the room where they're having this meeting. It's like, what's he going to say? Is it going to be 50? Is it going to be 75? What? Jay, tell us. We have to know.
It's like the chisme or the gossip, as we say. It's like, what did he say? What did he do? Because unfortunately, that's what's the market is kind of. I'm like, we say it's priced in, but I got to tell you, if they would have came out, if Jerome Powell would have came out and said, you know what, we're going to go 0.75 or even 1, I can tell you that would not be priced in. So it's a good thing we went 0.5. So again, when we talk about planning these things, I always talk about this. When in doubt, zoom out. So right now, when we zoom into these markets, not the best thing. But if we zoom out 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, if you got a 5-year plan in crypto, I think you're gonna be pretty happy. It's like Lynch says, everybody has the brain power to invest. The thing is, do you have the stomach for it?
Yeah. Wow, I couldn't have put it better myself, Rob. So let's round things up. Here we are. You know, we're in a bear market. We're not in a bear market. Who can say? Neither of us can say for sure. But looking at the months ahead, I'm willing to put it down and say all I know is that we're in for volatility. We're in for a kangaroo market, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great for traders, range-bound traders. They love volatility, so this is your time to shine, everybody. And this is just my time to do the same thing I did in 2018, which was just slowly dollar cost average, buy up Bitcoin. I remember buying Bitcoin at 3,500, 4,000, Ethereum at $100, Cardano at 7 cents, and on down the line. And I think it's the same thing repeating. So.
The technology is just getting better. You know, and again, if in doubt, zoom out. Ignore the number side of it and focus on all the technology, focus on all the progress that's being made behind the scenes. You know, the likes of Cardano, so much building going on. We've got the merge coming up in 18 months' time.
In some time, we'll figure it out.
Not quite sure when.
I will say this though. So everybody here, I will just say one thing is that, you know, we talk about front running. You know, we want to front run the banks, front run the institutions. You know that everybody here is pretty much front run the large institutions? I mean, think about that. I mean, especially you guys who've been in 2016, 17, 2011. I mean, you front run MicroStrategy, you front run all the banks, you front run all the countries. You definitely front ran the Federal Reserve. So you guys and ladies are here and you're ahead of every single person out there. And you're at the very precipice of what's about to happen. I don't know how much time it's going to be, but I think you're in the right place.
Well, Rob, I think we should wrap this up now.
Wrap it up.
I want to say thank you so much for coming along today. Thank you for coming all this way. I mean, I know you get to see London. You're doing a bit of a European tour as well. You're kind of tacking a holiday onto the end of it. But I really appreciate you coming. I've admired your work. I've loved your channel for so long. It's just great to go there and get the facts. No hype, no hopium, and it's what we try to do as well. But you do it in such a great way, and I really admire what you do and your attitude to it. And I just want to say, on behalf of everyone, I think, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me.
Rob from Digital Asset News. Yeah. Subscribe, or I'm coming for you. Okay, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break now. We've kind of mashed the schedule up for you a little bit, so we're going to have something a little bit different in a few minutes for you. We have got the wonderful Maren Altman here, and she is going to talk to us about, let me see what the title of Maren's speech is, Content Creation and Strategy for Cryptocurrency Social Media Leverage. And as if bang on cue, here she is. So everyone give a great big hand for the wonderful Maren Altman.
My love for you has Hi everyone, I am Marin. If you don't know me, well, good first, because most of my videos are pretty cringe, but you may know me from TikToks where I talk about both the market and astrological correlation with that. And accidentally, I have ended up here today. I did not intend to get on TikTok, find out about crypto, have any sort of social media career, and because of that, without trying to end up in this position, I've learned some things along the way about what works when I accidentally made that happen. And I'm usually talking about this with crypto companies because there is a difficulty, I would say, in bridging the heavily technical developer strategic side of this space and some of the more creative, personable side of it. And there are several people here today and last night at the panel who have done that successfully with YouTube, TikTok, or other platforms. And I'm going to be breaking down today an approach that whether you are a company or an individual or simply want to build something that stands out on social media, there can be a strategy. This is not like something that is just like, oh, I get creative insight. No, there's a plan to this. So I'll be talking about content creation and strategy, I think in terms of development and kind of a business side of this. So I hope that this is valuable for anyone who's looking to grow their reach and hopefully have an impact on more and more people with the potential for helping out with this space, because I think that behind this all there is an understanding that the more that we can spread this message, the more people we can help, and that's the underlying foundation of why leveraging content can be an exponentially important thing. So I like to think of it as bringing Gen Z on chain, because the people on these platforms are going to be younger, and a lot of that generation is who is getting more into crypto. Not that millennials aren't, but the younger that you can get people involved, usually the more that they will be loyal and last and will be easier to pick up on things. So I'm going to start out identifying the unique importance and challenges of this, specific to this generation, then apply it to crypto companies. You could think of yourself as an individual as well, but usually you're going to be operating in a way that you have to think of it a bit like a business, even if it's creative. And then I'll describe some examples of non-crypto companies that have done this pretty well. So teaching to beginners is more difficult than teaching to experts, but I would say that it's more rewarding. And I found this out in my short-lived random career as a yoga teacher when I was in university, that if you were a more qualified teacher, you were generally teaching to beginners because you have to understand first principles. I didn't mean to be quoting this right now, but I think it was Aristotle that said that true knowledge is awareness of first principles. It is not just memorizing facts. That if you can understand things well enough to teach them to beginners, you will have a greater foothold on those people, they will be more loyal, and it's more rewarding in the end. So the value of this, teaching to beginners, rather than people who already know everything, is firstly that there's literally a higher return on investment. You're going to have these people stick with you and think of you, even when they're at a higher level. So valuing the ability for your content to reach that beginner audience, I think, is the first thing. Even if you were teaching advanced concepts, having a way to root them back to a foundational topic that everyone can relate to will be important. So that is step one, I think, is how can I teach this to a beginner, and what would I need to set out on to make sure of that? Secondly, the network effect is that beginners literally just talk more. Oh my God, I found this, let me tell you about this. Someone who is an expert in the field is speaking to other experts in a much smaller network. So there's also just the ability for this to exponentially grow as they teach others. Thirdly, beginners search out a community. This is something that I struggled with the most because of understanding how if you're teaching at a high level, often that is not going to leave their mind, versus making sure that you go back to a beginner topic will help people have that insecurity, or not help people have an insecurity, but they will have an insecurity, not in a bad way. They'll realize that there's a gap in their knowledge, and they'll then try to solve this problem through supportive outreach, which can be helpful in building up a network for yourself. And similarly, you'll learn for yourself through the process, because a lot of wisdom comes from repetition and the realizations that can come from saying something, the same thing in a million different ways. So it's often more worthwhile for you, because there's also a quote that it's unattributed, but it's one of my favorites, is that perfection is to improve is to change, to perfect is to change often. So if you can have a similar message but change it multiple iterations for a different audience, different times, different market conditions, that will help ingrain your presence and in your mind what you're actually saying. So to sum that up, higher return on investment if you get in there early and you're able to translate your content to a beginner, as well as yourself becoming more articulate. TikTok is about a 15-second attention span. It's not like you open the app one day and you can master being able to fit your message into 15 seconds. That takes practice. But the more used to that you are, and the more that you can pick a platform and see what your most viral video is and repeat that, that repetition is really key on multiple levels here. The most efficient way to target these beginners, very obviously, is social content, which largely is targeting a younger generation. So I would say even if you think that your target audience is 35 and above, I would say to consider how you can make content also for 35 and under, because those are the people the most able to take what's there and develop that network effect as well. You're largely going to be reaching these people on YouTube or TikTok as well, if those are the platforms you're going for, which I think are underserved in crypto, because Twitter is great for knowledge. It's a little bit of a different demographic though, and video content tends to be, more fun to watch. And I guess you're not watching Twitter, I digress. Sorry. Make sure I'm not skipping anything here. Okay. The problem is that Gen Z has no attention span. I can attest to this. Literally, TikTok has shot it totally. So you will not generally find your beginner audience by being on like a 2-hour yield farming podcast. I can't even listen to that. That's way too much commitment. That's where you can retain your users, so it's not like that type of content is negative, but you need to get their foot in the door, then you can produce larger content. So you have to do something that is more short-term, because you will not target these new users through Facebook, frankly. Like really, I highly discourage thinking that Facebook, unless you're in a strange circumstances where you're going to target these people. And I would say people join crypto Twitter after doing things like seeing a YouTube video. That's not generally where you're going to find the newest users, but I don't know about Facebook. I'm literally not on it. Twitter's a good way of retaining as well. I don't think that these are the best for outreach, though. For outreach, you want something with a better algorithm, which is TikTok. I understand privacy concerns, so then YouTube. But I wouldn't say that Facebook or Twitter are generally where you can get people, let alone retain their attention span. I have no attention span for this. I'm very frustrated. Okay. Please. Okay. In my opinion, TikTok and YouTube are the best bets for retaining this audience, more fun to watch, you can engage them, and you want to find people who are tangential, who are interested in crypto. If you're targeting a pre-existing audience, you're going to incubate and retain them, you might not grow. I would say that these are the best algorithms for organic reach, in particular TikTok, because the AI and the algorithm behind it prioritizes the content, not the person, which means that anyone with good content or a message that is impressive can be heard. You don't need another following. In fact, I would say that the best way to grow on any other platform is to grow on TikTok. Nothing compares. And I had 200 followers on every platform before blowing up on TikTok 2 years ago now, or a year and a half, 2 years ago. So that platform itself, I think, is extremely undervalued. And for people with privacy concerns for that, you may not have to show your face if you're doing something like animation. However, there are general concerns, and YouTube's a good alternative. I think that if you have a TikTok TikTok, you also need a YouTube to provide and monetize things. For those interested, the TikTok Creator Fund pays nothing. Like if I get tens of millions of views a month, I make maybe $300 a month. So that's like a comparison, is you can't monetize it. And everyone has a camera and a phone to film on with this. I think there's too much emphasis on production value and not on quality. Invest in production value when you have a following based on your message and your wit. I would say your concision is down. I wouldn't get too hung up about production quality when everyone has a phone with a camera on it to film on. Also, absolutely everything high level can be simplified down into a fundamental issue to highlight. Simplified down is in 15 seconds. That even if your brand, your focus, your company, or what you make content on is high level, there is always an entry point because the people who care enough will investigate further. That I don't think that creators or companies should feel the need to stay at the level that they're producing at. For example, the most advanced scientists, doctors, maybe even artists or singers, when they are communicating to a mass audience, they're not talking about the really high-level astrophysics or like the in-depth discussions about surgery. You have to be able to communicate this at the fundamental level. And I think approaching content in a similar methodical way where what can someone's awareness and life experience hit rather than go over their head, that is important. And if it can be simplified into 15 seconds, even better. That kind of content is much more shareable. I think 60 seconds in a video is like it has to be really valuable if I want someone to listen to me for 60 seconds. So some considerations for crypto companies or individuals building a crypto brand is that Gen Z, even if they've heard of crypto, is widely unfamiliar with what it is. Even on my videos that are in more in-depth topics, the comment section is, asking what store they can pay for in Bitcoin. I mean, people are widely unfamiliar, even if they have heard of what crypto is. So simplifying your message, I think, is the utmost importance. There is strength in being parsimonious and concise, and those who want to learn more will. Building up an archive of both viral, short messages and also long-form, informative messages is key because you want people to feel like, oh, wow, I was interested. Oh, and I went and searched, and there's another video that explains this more. Very fulfilling when someone can feel like they found something on your channel or your account that answers their question. So even if your product is advanced, you don't have to make your mainstream content completely in tune with that. You can simplify it down. So thinking in terms of first principles is very key because there will be an initial question that leads people to your project, your brand, or your interest. If you're doing some high-level cross-chain liquidity providing, maybe everyone might think of what the entry user to crypto that would get there might be asking. Where can I earn a higher yield on my savings account? Answering crypto questions, things like that. What initial question would lead someone to find your product or your brand? Then also thinking of an application outside of solely crypto, because if you can cross over with another area of life or even a meme or something that would get non-crypto people in the door, that can increase your scalability. So an example that comes to mind is if you're doing crypto real estate cross-collateralization, also making content about real estate, for example. Or if you're a personal brand, having a detail about your life. Like if you really like skateboarding or some other activity, do not make the channel about that. If you diverge from your niche, that will confuse people, but if you have something personal or quirky that can differentiate you, that helps because people are generally into novelty, even if it doesn't make sense. So another application can be helpful. Then also aiming for being engaging rather than educational at first, because those who want to learn more will, and this does not mean dumbing down, doing absurd clickbait, saying Dogecoin's going to $1 million or something. You do not have to do that. But aiming for education to maximize your education in the long term, I think, is a better strategy than trying to go for blatantly educational because no one wants to be fed like spoon-fed a curriculum. Generally, they want to be entertained, then they will learn more if they want to. So this is my favorite case study. This is Ryanair. I've never flown Ryanair, but they do this really well. And what they do is a series of things. And I'll start out with the first thing. All this content that tends to blow up is provocative in some way. It gets you to stop and to think. Their videos are blatantly incredibly stupid, but they work, and they're not half-assed. Like, they put work into animating googly eyes on a plane and making it dance to thirst traps. It's stupid. It's very low level for the level of humor and the accessibility, but they put thought into that, and now a generation of kids knows about Ryanair. I follow after this picture, I ended up following them. I don't know why it was not followed at the time. I've never flown Ryanair. I'm American. I'm generally not flowing into like Europe. So I've never flown on them. But I think of their TikTok before I think of them, as do many people my age, simply because they make funny TikToks. It's a topic that everyone can relate to, which is flights and the issues with flights. Like, there's some videos that they do talking about every upcharge, like, and they don't even try to hide it. They're like, you're going to get a shitty flight, but you paid 20 euros for it, like, sit down. It's actually pretty funny, and it highlights its issues without hiding it. So similar to if I make a bad trade, I'll make a joke out of it. Like, I'm not going to try to hide it. I think the transparency and humor is important in these things, because trying to be perfect or too serious, I mean, it's just like, I can't take that seriously. So I think what Ryanair does well as a company, which should not work, this should not work. It should not get millions of views, putting googly eyes on a plane and having it dance to, I don't know, Dua Lipa or whatever. Those that want to learn more will. Like, those that want to go and book a Ryanair flight because of this TikTok, which frankly, this account does not make me want to fly this airline at all, but those that want to learn more will, and the product is already in their mind, versus I can't name too many other comparable like European airlines to go and check out if I really wanted to fly that kind of a flight. So some more tips from me personally is to use TikTok for your absolute bullshit. Like, you just want your people's foot in the door with TikTok. It does not retain people well. There is the option to post 3-minute videos on TikTok. No one watches them. Like, no one is gonna sit and watch, I'm not gonna sit and watch 3 minutes on TikTok. So stick to your entry level, very like statements, and then use YouTube for retaining existing interest and explaining yourself. You're not going to be able to get people interested if you're trying to explain every nuance in a TikTok. That is much better for this is funny. People can find me elsewhere if they want to learn more. Secondly, your content's main reach doesn't have to focus on your value proposition if it's on a major platform. For example, if you're a major crypto, lending custodial company, you could make a TikTok account about troubles with banks, like annoyances. You could do facts about like why the banking system is bad. There's so many ideas for why the engagement that you receive does not have to be on your core value proposition, but does not have to dilute it as well. Where if you have one thing that works, do it a million times until people are literally commenting, stop making a video like this. Like, that's how much you want to overuse what works, because if it works, do it until it runs out. You want to focus on getting people's foot in the door and keeping it. You don't always want to focus on getting other professionals. I think that the network effect and investment in beginners and making watchable, shareable content is highly underutilized in this space. And a few people have tapped into it, but I did not intend to have learned this or have done it, but I think a background in several things helped me get to that point. So with me, I didn't intend to blow up on TikTok, but I like to talk about my story so that I can just share what did get me there. And firstly, I think that red and crypto and astrology just tend to piss people off and got me comments like, my first video that blew up was why I hate your zodiac sign. I didn't know that people got offended on social media. Shocker. Like, people get really offended about really minor things. So immediately everyone hated me and I blew up, and that was history. And I stick to high level when it's extremely important, but mainly not on TikTok, because I understand people's attention span and not wanting to dilute myself in the algorithm. I prefer YouTube for that. 60 seconds, in my opinion, is a ton of effort and attention to ask for from someone in like today's attention span. So if I'm doing that, I have to feel completely justified with 60 seconds that I have the utmost value packed in that. And I do not feel entitled to waste someone's time, which means that I can speak too quickly sometimes, but I mean, that's a trade-off. It's a topic that everyone can relate to with my astrology side because even though I combine the two, everyone can make a comment about whether they believe it or not, like their sign. It'll end up on someone's For You page because the algorithm knows everything about you and will give you a video about being a Pisces if you're a Pisces. Trust me, TikTok, they're hearing everything. It's kind of frightening. Also, I think that the insight into my life with the personal moments helps. It does not mean you have to suddenly become a vlog channel at all, but I would much rather watch someone who's informative, but also, I don't know, their dog comes on while they're filming, or you know who their boyfriend or girlfriend is because sometimes they come out during the video, things like that. It helps to see insight into someone's life rather than an OX address as a username, an NFT as a picture, a vocal distortion as their voice. Like, there's no comparison. So being a real person helps. And those that want to learn more will. I do not feel the need to over-explain or overshare on TikTok because that would take away from people finding me. Those that want to go to YouTube and find my like 40-minute, hour-long videos can do so. And I don't feel the need to like baby someone or explain everything on one platform. So diversity in platforms for what they're used for, I think, is also important. Okay, there. If you're a company or a project and you're also thinking about how to apply this, I would invest much more energy and money on simple TikToks and exposure through that platform than KOLs. Like, no comparison. If you're thinking about growing, I would rather just make honest, there can be honestly an upside to being someone who doesn't even know how to use TikTok, because there's some funny videos of people that obviously just got on the platform, have no idea what they're saying, will go viral, and it blows up. The amount of reach that you can get from authentically wanting to create something of value versus paying someone to talk about you, there's no comparison. And I say this as someone who entered this space, immediately had tons of offers for things I had no idea about, and was like, why don't you just make TikToks? And there was no discussion about that. No one cared. I would say 1,000,000% invest into what will scale, which is an honest community built through your honest message and content, rather than paying key opinion leaders, whatever, to talk about your project. This is more to projects, because I think that that's what a lot of this will end up becoming, is these teams, these projects, having their own TikTok accounts one day. TikTok is the reason that I'm here today and have anything to show for myself. Like I said, nothing in my life happened until my last semester of university, when I signed up for TikTok while on a hike in Sedona, and randomly, I'm here today. And it's also why some things I'll never have back in my life, but I think it was worth it. And I highly recommend that anyone who feels like they have any message, you don't want to look back one day and feel like, I wonder what would have happened if I posted that video or put my face, if you're anonymous, it doesn't have to be your face, your words out there. I would rather do it and be incredibly embarrassing and embarrassed in the process, but know that I did it, because maybe that impacts one person. And in this space that is full of a lot of weird, sketchy stuff, but at its core has a really good world-changing intention, I don't think that anyone has the right not to go out there and try it. If you want to do that. If not, obviously this is just fun to think about. But I would highly recommend going for it. So any questions anyone has, I will be around. And I thank Guy and everyone at coinbureau for being able to have me here today.
Maren Altman! Yeah! Okay. Right. We have got now, LunarCrush is our headline sponsor today, and I want to thank them again so much. They've been an integral part of making today happen. They're an awesome platform. Go check them out. The truth from 1,000 versions of it. I look at LunarCrush all the time. It's such a useful tool. And again, guys, thank you so much for supporting us today. So I would like, on that note, to welcome Joe, the CEO and co-founder of LunarCrush, and he is going to be having a fireside chat with industry veteran, managing director at O Group, Maya. Come on down, guys.
Little rearrangement. How are we all doing tonight? I just want to say a huge thank you to Guy and Macy and everyone that put together the event tonight. You know, I've been to so many events, so many cryptocurrency conferences over the years, and they charge $1,000 or $5,000, and they keep all the insights and they keep people out. And so just want to say thank you guys so much for putting this on. It's been great. So can you guys give them a round of applause, please? Thank you. My name is Joe Visani. I'm the CEO of LunarCrush. We're a social intelligence platform, yada, yada. You heard from us. What I want to talk about tonight, Maya, thank you for being here. Maya Vujinovich. Maya's been in the industry since 2010. Your career started in 2005. You were laying infrastructure and telco infrastructure in Africa and Latin America. You find Bitcoin 2010. You know, you probably start going down the rabbit hole like the rest of us. 2014 hits, you're the CIO at GE. You're working on industry verticals, bringing DLT technology to these people, and then you go on to found your own advisory group, $1 billion in portfolio, an advisor that's out there. You're focused on people, you're focused on research. Can you just talk a little bit about how you found, like 2010, that's insane. Like that's so long ago. Like what clicked in your mind at that time where you were like, this is going to change everything?
Can everybody hear me? It's such a it's such a pleasure to be here, and I thank you very much. Joe and I actually only met not even a month ago.
Yeah.
And we were connected through Shima Capital, which is where I'm an LP at. It's a fantastic fund. And I thank coinbureau as well, because he's actually, I didn't get a chance to tell him, I hope he's listening, but he's actually one of my go-to for learning anything. And there is shit ton to learn, that's for sure. So 2010, I find myself at the time in Africa. I was actually at the time running a political election in Mali. And prior to that, 5 years or a couple of years prior to that, I actually built mobile networks. And what we did is we hacked into the systems to bring in new operators and really disrupt monopolies. And we would put ministers in front page news to lower the prices for local population. And I got into Bitcoin because through a hacker community, one of the hackers sent me the white paper. And he said, you might like this. You're literally his words, you're a cool chick, you should look at it. Kid you not. And I was like, great. I looked at it, didn't understand anything except a couple of words on there that to this day are in my mind, peer-to-peer. And I was at my desk and I thought, holy shit, if this is possible, then everything we're building probably goes out the window, and everything that we know goes out the window. So again, the journey was long, but I did invest a little bit of money at the time. And not invest, I actually gave it to somebody where I didn't know where it went. And then 3 years later, I found out how much money I had. But I continued doing my work. I moved to New York, and I got recruited at GE to run their emerging tech platform globally. And in my mind, the only thing that was in my mind was, if I'm going to take this job, I better take it for something bigger, because I was not a corporate person. And, I told the guy who hired me, I said, John, if I get hired, I'll get fired in 2 weeks. You don't want me there. And I used it to test all the smart contracts that I came across. So that's when I also brought Vitalik and Joe Lubin and Lehman and Mintz and all the kind of legends you hear about. They were just people who were trying to build something in this world. And I had the data at GE where I could deploy that, quote, smart contracts, which there was nothing smart about it, into the system. So that gives you a little bit of story of how I got into it.
Yeah, so talking on that, you've seen generations across the industry, if you will. Is there what is the thread that connects anyone that says, you know what, I'm just going to go risk it all. I'm going to go work in this industry. I'm going to start, I'm going to found a company, or I'm going to, start a DAO. Like, I'm going to just leave my job and go do it. Is there something that you've noticed over the years that there's just a thread across the industry? Because everyone sitting here is here for a reason. There's something in there that's like, I want to be a part of this. I need to know more about it. And then there's the people that go and start something. Like all the companies, all the advising that you're doing. Is there something that you're noticing across these people?
So maybe I take a liberty. Why are you all here?
Maybe everyone show of hands. Raise your hand if you currently
I'm a
work
cool
in the
chick.
industry.
No, that's not why you're here.
We got a couple.
Why are you here? Okay, so bored of banking, and you're getting into something new. Okay, some people are here to make money, purely.
Right.
Some people are here to create something different. Some people are here to impact the world. Some people are here because they were bored, or some people are here because they're recognizing what's around the corner. That was me. I didn't have a normal upbringing, as you know, and I was a little bit gifted in a strange ways, but I always kind of seeked for next things. I was curious, I learned, I read a lot. And so for me, I knew mobile payments were coming, and I didn't even think about the risk. And to some folks, that might be crazy, actually, because most people first think about risks, right? When you're starting a company, you first think about what can go wrong, how much money you're spending, and all the things that you're doing. But I just went on to the next thing. And then when Bitcoin came around, I just realized that this could potentially change the world, and I wanted to be part of it. Not that I had like an enlightenment and said, oh, this is going to be something in 2022, for example. I just had a hunch because I was working. I was in places where it was hard to transfer money, where people basically robbed you to just transfer $100. At the end, somebody else would just get $60, right? And I thought it was unfair. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is I had a little bit of a undefined mission, and that was, this shit is not fair. And so I want to go somewhere where it's a little bit more fair, where I can do good and make money. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. So that mission drove me, right? Instead of just saying, oh, Bitcoin is going to be whatever price, I'm going to make this much money, right? So I think that's what I'm seeing a lot in people that also start amazing companies, is the mission driven versus I need to make shit ton of money.
And to build on what you just said, do you think that this industry today is solving the problem that you wanted it to back in 2013, 2014? Is it fulfilling the mission that you thought in your head the industry should?
You ask controversial questions. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, in a sense, look where we are, right? When I started, I was part of Satoshi's roundtable. There were, 30, 40 people in there, not even. Mostly Bitcoin Core. And me kind of, being a wet towel in the room and saying, guys, this is going to take a long time. Like, what do you, Visa process it, 20,000 transactions per second, and Bitcoin, 7? Right? I mean, I think I was a little bit of a reality check to a lot of these folks. And I think today, it's unfortunate to see, I need to be also, a little bit careful how I answer this, because it's unfortunate to see that the greed has overtaken, but I have a lot to say on that, right? Because on a cellular level, and this might be a little too deep, but on cellular level, our cells are driven by overcoming. So we, by nature, might be greedy, right? And we live in a society that awards that. But I think this industry, for me, for the last number of years, has shown me the opposite too, that you can actually create massive amount of impact while also making money and making a living. So I'm sorry to go roundabout ways to your question, but it's a really important one. I think it is accomplishing what we need it to, because we're seeing it in Africa, we're seeing it in Latin America, we're seeing people here earn money in Western world that didn't have an opportunity to do before. So I think it is. I'm coming to my own answer.
Yeah, and I think you kind of, we all think that the industry is going to end up somewhere, but we don't know the exact path it's going to take to get there. And it's not, we're not going to predict the future. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, but we know where we want to be eventually. And so, it's kind of fun. You gave me some of your friends' numbers, and I sent them a couple messages, and I said, can you just please tell me 3 words that come to your mind, the moment, I ask you about Maya. And David Namdar, he runs Coral and then NFT.com, right? And
Galaxy. Yeah. David Static Galaxy with Mike No Regret.
And he used a couple of different words, but one of the words he just used was just smiling, right? And I thought, well, I'm going to take a little creative license there and say, I think that's just positivity or like optimism. But it's almost like you do need some sort of kind of blind optimism about the future to say, this is the industry that is going to change everything. This is Web3. This is the new peer-to-peer. We've solved the double spend problem. But how important is just pure optimism, whether it's building your brand, building the advisory and the investment group? Like, you went through a lot of years where there's a lot of people sitting around going like, we don't know if we're ever going to achieve this mission. And here we are now. There's 10,000 different tokens in the market. Bitcoin is owned by some of the largest companies in the world. So maybe you could just talk about like just your optimism for the future and why, if you're starting a company or you're trying to get into this industry, that you need that optimism.
I was getting some water earlier and actually overheard a conversation of 3 dudes going, yo, mate, you've got to raise as much money as possible. I don't do a really good British accent, but you've got to raise a lot of money, basically, and you've got to reverse engineer. If you're in the room, raise your hand, whoever was talking about that. But instead, you make sure you raise a lot of money constantly in crypto. And I just overheard that, right? So I guess how it ties to your question is, first of all, I think in my life, I had no choice but to be positive, and I think we don't. We are, all of us literally sitting here are by mistake. So it's like you're literally, think about what it took in this world and the universe to get you in this form with that type of smile, with that type of hair. So fucking take a chance. It's like you gotta live with the full chest. You gotta live with, and you don't think about the negatives, right? And that again might be naive to a lot of people how I think, and I appreciate that. But I love people, as you know. I love good energy, and I think when you do think about building a company, it's a little bit of this will work because I believe in something, and I have the right people around me. And if you have genuinely, I believe in that inside your heart, if you have a good intention, that will come to you, right? That's just like people smell fear just like dogs. People smell good energy just like dogs. And I think it's very important, again, not to be maybe stupid. If something doesn't work in your company, you gotta quit, you gotta pivot, you gotta have good advisors, you gotta have good friends, you gotta have good partners. But it all starts with you, right? And I think that awareness and consciousness about where am I going and admitting to yourself when something doesn't work. With O Group, I started with, I don't know, $1,000, right, investing. And it was having faith that certain things will work out. And when they don't, you focus on other things that do, because that's just what life is about, isn't it? So it's a constant focus on what works, what doesn't.
And when you're talking to teams at O Group, or you're saying, you get a lead or someone shares a deck and they're saying, hey, Maya, like, you got to invest in this company. These guys are the best, or these girls are the best. What are you looking for in a founding team? Maybe there's a CTO, maybe there's a CEO. Like, what are the complementary features that you're looking for in that team when you're saying, like, I'm betting on this team? Because in the early stages, you're just betting on team. The idea is going to change. Everything's going to change. how do you really identify in that first meeting? How do you know? What are some of the things that you see happen between the founders where you're like, I'm going to place a bet here?
I'm not a, completely crypto native, nor do I believe that everything, like there are a lot of projects looking for, home, and it's just, I come from building like really hard, difficult payment railways that have like real kind of companies behind it, not just in the air. I think when I look at companies, what is it that they're solving? And I actually ask founders, can you tell me about your solution without using the word blockchain? They go, what? It is about blockchain. No, it's not about blockchain, because I know where blockchain fits in architecture. I know what blockchain is. I've ran thousands of pilots on different contracts. So can you tell me why you're doing this without using the word blockchain? And usually if they can't, probably not a good company. No, I don't care what the energy is with the founders. I don't care if they raise money from Andreessen, which, by the way, doesn't matter anymore because they have so much money. So just because you raise from Andreessen doesn't mean it's a good company. Or any big brand, right? I think what's coming next in the space is a reality check. And that reality check is a utility. How are you adding value to regular people in the world? And how are you adding value to the like intimate circle of what you're doing?
Yeah. A couple of claps. Yeah, no, thank you guys. Maya's on fire. So let's get a little current. I've heard, Peter Thiel has sent out a note to everyone at Founders saying, you know what, just go read some books this summer. Like, it's over. Like, just take your time. As a founder in that space, or the three gentlemen back there that said raise as much money as humanly possible, and now you have an investor landscape that's saying don't invest in a single company for like months. When you have your current portfolio, you're advising people, and these folks are coming to you saying, Maya, we need a bridge. We're not going to make it this summer. Like, what are you telling them right now that they're coming to you? And they might be panicking slightly about the market, especially some of the younger folks who they've not gone through a bear market.
I think that's a phenomenal question, actually, and it's a hard one.
Good, because I just made it up right now.
Huh?
I just made it up right now. So.
Did you?
Yeah.
It is a hard one. It is a hard one because if you're, again, I'm putting myself in a position. If you have a company, you've got people that work for you, you've promised to your investors, right? You know the crypto winter is coming. If I was an advisor, and it's a good company, it's a good product, I'd say raise as much money as possible, but have integrity, because without that, it's really short-lived. You're not going to make it in this market. You think you are, but in this space, rep is everything. Like, literally is everything. And how good you are to other people and how sharing you are to other people. If you are a company that's kind of on a cusp, the need is not, there isn't a clear need.
Yeah.
What I would do probably, I would roll up my sleeves with that company, as we do, because we're usually seen as helpful capital, and I would see who their partners are. I would see if there's a scale, utility, customer, and how do we get those partnerships rolled up? Like, how do we get the utility of whatever you're trying to do, right? Focus on that. Shrink on everything else. Shrink on your plans on expansion. Shrink on hiring people. Just think about what is the first MOU in. Shrink on hiring people. Just think about proving what you claim to the world you can do. So everything else, stable coins are going to become hot, I think. I've said that for years. I'm an investor in a lot of them. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is because I'm a decentralized freak all the way. But it's where a lot of people are going to look to park money.
And it's funny because, when you think as a startup founder, if you're someone that's trying to start a business, if you have something, there's always a price that someone will pay, right? But I think a lot of new founders go out, especially when the market's really hot, and they're like, hey, I'm going to go raise at a $20, $40 million valuation pre-product, or maybe they have a little product. And in crypto, it's notorious for launching something and then delivering later, or sometimes not even delivering. But I think sometimes what early founders don't realize is, there's always a price that someone would be willing to pay if you've committed full time. right? A lot of people got one foot in, they've got one foot out. They're like, oh, I'm going to work at my other job, and then I'm going to try to build this thing up. And there is, to a certain semblance, you can be remote, you can do that a little bit, but you do need to commit fully, right? Like, would you guys ever invest in a company that has a CEO that was like, hey, I'm still got a day job over here, but then I'm going to go do this?
No, I think that's a good point. And actually, as you're saying that, I'm channeling and I feel inspired. But I think it's one of the key points when you're working with a company. You want somebody who's fully committed. And by the way, also have a little bit of I'd say, let's give it a break to founders in the space. And here's why I say that. This is such a nascent technology. And everybody's like, oh, people putting pressure. It has to work tomorrow. You have to scale tomorrow. You have to evolve your product in 6 weeks from now. Hold on a second. Like, one thing is pump and dumps. That's cool. We all might make money on it. But another thing is like building a product. You know how hard it is. You know what that feels like. You know better than I do because I haven't built those types of products. So, but I see founders, and you have to be committed. But you also have. I always say to people, if your advisors are not giving you anything, kick it to the curb. I don't care if it's your sister or whatever. Like, say, hey, thank you for all the help. Here is a token of appreciation. Pay people, always pay people. Give them something for what they've done, right? I always believe in that too. And then get other people that can actually help you. So I don't know if that answers your question because it's such a good question. I can go in so many different directions.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I actually want to pivot a little bit and, you know, looking out in the crowd here and the industry in general, I mean, you've been in the industry for a really long time. You know, the example that I always use is we put out a job rec one time. And a job description. Like, we were hiring someone at LunarCrush, and I put it on Pomp crypto jobs, right? Like Anthony's thing. And it was like a chief of staff position, and we had 175 resumes. 170 of those were men. Only 5 women applied out of 175.
I'll work for you.
And one of them we hired, and we ended up hiring, and she's here today. But like, just starting from that spot, I mean, it's such a touchy subject. I mean, you've been in the industry a long time. You know, you've seen a lot of these kind of cycles. Like, how do you turn that tide where we bring more cultures, more people, and more women also into this space?
Yeah, tough one, sensitive one. I'm pretty sure women in the room are feeling more that question than men. Biologically, it's normal. Like, I'm not a massive feminist, but I'm also a realist, and I call out men that say there's no women in the space, and I say you're full of shit. Because there are tons of women in the space, you're not reaching out. And I get it. 170, right? There's a little bit of that where a founder team has to do a little bit of work and reach out to people like myself and others and say, we're really looking for a minority or a woman or whatever else you're looking for, right? Somebody that's disadvantaged in some way. And I have tons of groups I can spread that across, and I can actually ask, you know? Little bit of effort. This space is so fast. We run so fast. I can't even keep up with anything anymore, right? But I always say, going back to Peter Thiel's maybe thing, read books, like, we ought to do that, period. We got to pause. And I had a big insight today while I was writing on my balcony. That's literally, I wrote twice, slow down. Slow down. And I think reading the books is not bad, or doing whatever you're doing. And actually, that's a great advice, period. But I think when it comes to women, it's the same thing. I understand you need an engineer yesterday. I get it. But just take a little bit a further step and reach out to people and say, hey, do you have a woman, or do you have a minority, or do you have somebody else that you need to fill a gap? Just do that extra step. And then women that are in the room, stop blaming men, okay? Just take the responsibility and call them out. You're not doing it? Hey, Joe, you're not doing it. You're not doing it. Yeah. That's it. Just get real. Just get real. Real talk. This is not 1995. This is 2022. right? So real talk, no bullshit. You're in decentralization. You're not in old school banking. So no politics. What you need to ask for, and what you say you're going to do, you need to have integrity. That's it. Very simple.
Yep.
Simple.
Thank you, and thank you for answering that. Yeah. I also love, yeah, that's great. I've got one more. Just to touch on that too, really quick. We have people that work for us that are just an avatar. I don't even know who they are, but their work is fantastic, right? And so it's like that's also a whole other side of this where someone doesn't want to dox themselves, someone's anonymous. Like we're going into just this different world, and companies and people need to adapt. So we've got about 90 seconds. I got one more fun question, and then we can leave it. But if you were down to your last angel investment, your last couple of last chance to invest in something, not what company would you invest in or what token or project, how would you approach that last investment? Like, you've made a lot of, along the way there's a lot of different steps that you need to take. What's like the detailed way of how you would approach that, your final angel investment?
Oh, that's really easy for me. Whatever the product is, right? Okay. Will the company positively affect people's lives at its scale? And if it doesn't really matter.
So the inspiration side of that,
Yeah.
It needs to inspire.
Yeah, 100%.
Love it.
Yeah.
Everyone, Maya Vujinovic, thank you so much all for being here and listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to our headline sponsor, LunarCrush. That was an amazing talk. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Okay, so next we have another panel discussion, and it's all about DeFi. So who better to have on than DeFi Dad? We have one of our researchers who's here, Dan, and we also have Guy. So welcome them to the stage, guys. There's your mic.
Oh, okay. We have one mic.
Okay, wow.
Where are we going to sit?
I think we are going to sit. Why don't we sit kind of either side of this table here?
There's like 6 microphones up
I
here.
know. It's awesome.
Who else are they bringing on?
Hey everyone, how you doing? Yeah. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to introduce this gentleman to my right in just a moment. A little bit of housekeeping. So we are going to have a discussion now, the future of DeFi in a bear market, with none other than DeFi Dad, who is joining us remotely. There he is. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. So Dan and I are going to chat with DeFi Dad now, and then after that we'll have a quick kind of 5-10 minute break, and then we're going to finish up with a discussion about DAOs as well. So lots more to come. Just a quick introduction. This man here is Daniel Krupka. He is our head of research at the Coin Bureau. Yeah.
Head of crypto research.
Head of crypto research. So much of the insight, so much of the deep dive, so much of the knowledge that goes into our videos comes from this man here. So we're really pleased. He's normally works remotely over in the Czech Republic. We're really, really privileged to have him with us today, and he really wanted to talk DeFi with DeFi Dad. And on that note, DeFi Dad, there you are. Can I ask, where are you joining us from?
So I live in the Boston area, so I'm on the east coast of the United States, so not too far away, maybe like a 6-hour flight or so.
Awesome. So what's the topic? We're going to talk about the prospects for DeFi in a bear market.
Yeah, we could drive the conversation a few different ways. This is so relieving to know you're both here. I thought I was going to have to present slides on my own, which is miserable compared to talking with the two of you. So, I could sort of guide you through. If we skip ahead a few slides, I can walk you through like the agenda of topics I was thinking of. But I would rather have this be a a banter between the three of us.
Perfect.
Now I don't have to present on my own, so thanks.
Well, I think it would be great if we could, if we could see, if you could talk to us as you planned, and then Dan and I can kind of ask questions as we go along. How does that sound good?
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
So, how to maximize DeFi yield in a bear market? Let's go.
Awesome. And then I guess, is anyone able to skip to the next slide? Which we'll see here if I can see it. So right now I can just see myself.
Can you see
Let's
it?
see here.
Yep.
You know what? Now there we go. Okay, now I can see coinbureau. And now there we go. Now we're good. Now I can see the picture of the bear there. Okay, you can skip to the next slide. Just thought that was fun, because that's really what I want to talk about today is, like, the market has clearly changed, and I'm not going to sit here and give advice on whether it's a bull or a bear, or whether we're going to be in this sort of downtrend for any longer. But I recognize that we're not at an up-only trend, and so there's lots and lots of ways that you can earn yield in a passive way on assets you already hold. So just a few things before we get started. This kind of the default for probably everyone's talk today. None of this is financial advice. This is all for informational purposes only. Reminder, you can always lose 100% of any of your money you deposit into any DeFi application or protocol. And then as we talk through projects, I may use real examples of projects that I have invested in or my team at Fourth Revolution Capital have. I'll try to call that out. It's meant to disclose any bias I have. Please don't take it as a recommendation or endorsement of any tokens we talk about. So next slide. All right, cool. This just a quick reminder, if you happen to be a builder building the next great DeFi or Web3 application, please keep in mind my team at Fourth Revolution Capital. We're normally seed stage or Series A investors in all of the leading DeFi and Web3 protocols. Next slide. Okay, so here's exactly what we'll talk about. And I'm going to give a little bit more about my background, because I tend to still think about DeFi and crypto in the context of how I viewed it when I first came into this space about 5 years ago. So I've tried to never lose touch with those roots, and remembering how scary it was to download MetaMask, and kind of like asking all the obvious questions about why is crypto crypto? Why does it matter that I understand the supply of something like a Bitcoin or Ether? And so anyways, my goal here is to give some really simple examples for others to learn about, but then go explore yourself. The goal here is for you to think for yourself. None of this should be directions to basically go pump up your portfolio. But the title's a little bit clickbaity on purpose. So I want to talk to you a bit about what makes for great yield farming. I want to talk then about, and this will be, again, we'll discuss this amongst the three of us, I think what makes for great yield, what are great yield opportunities, whether you hold stable coins or a crypto asset that is more volatile, something like Ether. And then a less sexy conversation is just how to mitigate risk in terms of what farms you use or choose to use. And then lastly, where to find those, which will be a very brief conversation, because all of you are here because you're already subscribing to the Coin Bureau and others who are fantastic objective educators. Next slide. Okay, there we go. Yep. Perfect. Okay, cool. So just before we get started, and guys, chime in here if you have any other thoughts on this. In case you are newer to what yield farming is, or in case you've heard the term over the last few years, I wanted to actually try to define it. So the way I've always thought of yield farming is it is allowing you to simultaneously earn yield in one of a few different ways. And it normally involves, you can see here, it normally involves providing liquidity, so like an LP in an automated market maker like Uniswap. There's lending, and then there's often staking involved. And staking too, we'll talk a bit about. Sometimes staking relates to the consensus of a blockchain in a proof of stake blockchain, like let's say Phantom. But staking is a term that is now sort of misused to simply say deposit and lock up. And in many cases, you are rewarded tokens, sometimes from really high inflation tokens, but nonetheless they are rewards, and it adds a little icing on the cake for when you are putting your capital to use. And then just another few details here. It should require the Ethereum wallet can be any wallet, but it needs to be a self-custody wallet. So if you're on Ethereum or if you're on another blockchain like Polygon, just be mindful. It requires that you have a self-custody wallet. So you're 100% in control of your assets. Always should require no KYC. That's the whole point of DeFi, is that it's permissionless. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to sign up, give up any of your data. And then the last bit here we kind of hit on already, just that idea of you could lend or you could provide liquidity. But what if you could provide liquidity and then stake the LP token, earn a reward, and what if you have some automated vault that is taking those rewards and selling it for more profits, compounding it into your position? So you get where I'm going with this. It's the opportunity to earn yield in many different forms. Guys, any other thoughts on this? Does this feel like a robust definition of yield farming?
Yeah, I was actually talking about this with Guy earlier. Is that, I mean, a little bit of a tangent, but you're completely correct that one of the problems in crypto is that we haven't really clearly defined lots of the terms, right? Like something like decentralization or yield farming or even staking, like you were saying. It's like well, first of all, who sets that definition? And what implications does it have, and even in terms of how you're designing these protocols and everything, right? Honestly, the one thing that's coming to mind is you're mentioning all this, and I have a feeling, and if it's okay with you, DeFi Dad, I'll just ask a quick question to the crowd. How many people here have heard of Anchor Protocol? Oh, wow. Can you see that, DeFi Dad? Can you see the crowd?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love to see that. Yeah.
So Guy, like for anyone who didn't raise their hand, can you just give us a brief, like, not in depth, but just like the gist? You have the stable coin, and what's it doing? Why do people like Anchor Protocol?
Well, I mean, 20% interest is is pretty good. That'll get you started. Yeah. I think.
So I guess, sorry to make a hard segue on you there, DeFi Dad, but basically I think a lot of the people here who are interested in DeFi, I have a feeling that a lot of them kind of found out through, or they don't even know necessarily that it's DeFi. That's another thing we can talk about later about putting this DeFi stuff in the background, right? But a lot of the people here that know about DeFi is because of Anchor Protocol. So I guess the question I want to pose to you, DeFi Dad, because honestly, I would imagine that you're a much better expert than either Guy or probably everyone on the Coin Bureau combined, because DeFi things just evolve so quickly. But what are your thoughts there? Like, anyone here who's actively staking UST, making 20%, thinking they're going to beat inflation. Inflation, even unofficially is 15, 16%. So maybe you're still making 4%. What are your thoughts there? Like, how does this tie, I guess, into your framework of how you view DeFi? Is this UST? Is this Anchor Protocol? Is this something new, especially as we're seeing these other decentralized stablecoins come out from Near Protocol and Tron and all these different types? So curious to get your thoughts there.
Anchor very neatly fits the definition for me of yield farming, and very neatly fits thus into DeFi. Anchor is obviously very popular because they've offered this really incredible rate of nearly 20%. It's dropped recently because they're making some adjustments to the protocol. Part of that is because the way that Anchor was originally designed is you have proof of stake assets that are staked. So something like Luna or something like Atom. Anyways, the point is when you stake that, it's earning some yield, and then that yield is meant to help to subsidize some of the payments that are made through their Anchor earn rate, which is the 20% rate. I'll just leave it at this because it's a really deep rabbit hole to go down. The criticism that Anchor has gotten is that they've subsidized that rate over the past few years. And the way I view it is it's kind of like a marketing budget. So is it sustainable in its old form? No. That's why they're making some adjustments, because the underlying staking rewards don't pay enough, plus the borrowing interest. They're taking their liquid staked tokens, something like staked Luna is the most popular, and they're borrowing against it. The borrowing interest plus the staking rewards weren't making up enough yield. That being said, I'm personally very bullish on it, and I say that today. I don't hold any Luna myself, but I've held it in the past, and I've used Anchor probably more than 50% of the last 365 days. So yeah. Any other questions though on that?
Yeah. Can I just ask one other question before we jump in, before you carry on? So obviously MetaMask. No KYC, and I think the same question. How many people out here have used MetaMask? Pretty much everyone.
Very nice.
So,
Hardcore.
I mean, we've seen MetaMask having to restrict access to users in certain territories. I mean, how long do you think can this continue? Can MetaMask continue to offer a no KYC service for long, or is this something we have to make the most of while it lasts?
Yeah, I think we're all waiting on pins and needles to see what MetaMask does next. So what's nice is once you download MetaMask, no matter what part of the world you're in, like as long as you've downloaded it, it's now software that sits, let's say in most cases it sits on a Chrome browser or sits on something like Firefox. Once you have that downloaded, you're good to go. The issue is whether, of course, they restrict access to downloading it in the future. And of course, by using their software, if you are in a part of the world that they restrict, I mean, to me, like that's anti-Web3 ethos. I understand why it's happening because a lot of the team still operates in the US, and those that still own a controlling stake in it, which I believe is Consensus, probably has the largest controlling stake, unless they eventually tokenize and like truly evolve into a DAO. That's what's creating these issues. And so I think if anything, it has presented an opportunity for why we need more self-custody wallets, more extension wallets like a MetaMask to compete with it. And this is true for just about everything in DeFi. There's caveats here that if you start to dig further, you'll say, oh shoot, like that's a vulnerability that like in the worst of times could really bring us to our knees. A lot of the liquid staking protocols, I'll say Lido for example. I'm a big fan of using Lido. Lido has the lion's share of the liquid staking market of staked ETH at this point. But Lido definitely has some downsides to the way they onboard validators versus something like a Rocket Pool. So my hope is that Rocket Pool continues to grow and other liquid staking protocols, because that amount of staked ETH is only going to grow over time. And I think it's really important that we consider the total amount of tokens that are then staked in these protocols that have these potential opportunities to censor users. So
yeah. I guess in this case, DeFi Dad, I imagine you have another couple slides, yeah? And then maybe we'll actually try.
No, this is great. Yeah, don't worry. We can flip to the next slide after what is yield farming. So we covered. The only thing I was going to call out about Convex, I'll just use Anchor instead. So Anchor is yield farming. It's not just lending when you use that earn rate. Or actually, let me take that back. So if you are earning through just the lending, that's very straightforward. But if you decide to deposit, let's say some staked Luna, and you borrow, you actually start earning some of the ANC token from Anchor Protocol. So you're earning an inflationary token reward, but you also can then take your stable coins and you can earn in the Anchor earn rate, which is the one we were referencing, around 20%. So just a really simple example of like you're earning two forms of yield, but you're essentially, it's two forms of yield for really doing, the work of like one yield farm. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about what makes for great farming. The few points I wanted to make here are just that, especially in this bear market or whatever the hell market we're in right now, end of days market, I want to focus on tokens that I already hold. So I personally do not trade often. I very rarely, even buy a token from the open market. And that's been a pivot from the last, 4 or 5 years ago when I was, of course, first getting into the space and thinking about what should I buy other than at the time it was Ether and Bitcoin. And so what's really advantageous about decentralized finance is it provides just so many different avenues for earning with assets you already hold. The second point is I want to earn rewards that I would continue to hold. Now, there's nothing wrong with earning a reward that you intend to simply sell for. Let's say I'm earning XYZ whatever token. As I claim that token, I might then choose to sell it for more Ether. Ideally, though, I think a great farm, especially during a market like this, doesn't require me to have to sell that token. I would like to, going back to one of the earlier examples with staked ETH, I like staked ETH through Rocket Pool or Lido or in the future Stater because I'm able to just hold a token and I'm continually earning those rewards. Which brings me to my last point here. When you deposit tokens into a vault strategy, like let's say Yearn Finance, you are often able to take advantage of auto compounding, which is where your rewards really increase. That's where you start to earn that much more yield. Most of you have probably heard on the coinbureau channel, like they talk a lot about the power of compounding interest. Well, with DeFi, that's like on steroids because you can compound every few minutes if you're on a blockchain that allows for those sort of network costs. At worst, maybe you're compounding every day or every week. And so this allows me in a bear market to increase my rewards with minimal claiming. So my goal is to not have to do work. The best farm in the world, something like holding Steth by Lido or Instadap now has Instadap Lite Vaults, which gives you about 6 to 9% on staked ETH. I don't have to do anything. I just deposited my Ether and then I sit back and I let the smart contracts do the work of claiming any rewards or compounding my position. And if you're using, which I definitely recommend trying other blockchains beyond Ethereum, other blockchains, even at cheap transaction costs, it doesn't negate the fact that we only have so much time, we only have so much attention, so much effort. And so my goal is to minimize the time I spend on individual farms so I can truly be looking for what's the next great opportunity. Any other thoughts on that, guys?
Well, in terms of staking, I mean, in this kind of inflationary environment that we're seeing at the moment, is it worth staking stablecoins when Jerome and his buddies are devaluing the dollar every month?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about that too, and I'll just say I'm very thankful that there's so many opportunities in DeFi, cross-chain, where you can earn, like my goal is to always earn more than 10% easily. So one of the goals of the Anchor protocol we referenced earlier is that Anchor rate is meant to be like a benchmark that we all compare yield against. So I'll say it has truly become that benchmark for me. If I see an opportunity to earn with USD, dollar-pegged stablecoins, if it is not more than that Anchor rate, I'd rather just deposit my stablecoins into UST and dump it into the Anchor protocol. And again, just a reminder, that's not a recommendation that you do that, but I personally have done that with my own portfolio and really enjoyed the fact that the returns on that are denominated in stable coins. So I don't have to go back and sell some random token for more stable coins. I know that I am earning, today I think it's around 18% APY, and that's 18% against whatever the hell the Fed is doing in the US right now. I mean, inflation's easily over 10%.
So then I want to ask another question then of the audience here to tie into similar to what you just said there, DeFi Dad. One thing I feel like, well, so far, maybe it's in one of your later slides, so I apologize if I'm like front running that.
Oh, no, it's okay. Do it.
But what are your thoughts on like how do liquidations potentially affect, because there's a lot of this, I'm blanking on the word, but it's like the building block component of DeFi where everything's kind of connected to everything else. So the question I want to ask to the crowd is, how many of you have borrowed or are borrowing right now against your crypto? Any hands raised? Okay, that's good. That's reassuring. If the whole crowd went up, I'd be pretty scared. But yeah, because there are a lot of people who have put in their crypto, and they're borrowing stables. It's actually just a random tangent. It's kind of like the demand for borrowing is heavily correlated to the price of Ethereum. Like not so much with Bitcoin, but with Ethereum, which is extremely interesting. I mean, it makes sense, of course, but. So what are your thoughts there? Like, are you worried at all that there's going to be some sort of liquidation event, let's say an Aave or one of these bigger? I mean, they have all these fail-safes in place, but and even Guy and I were talking about this the other day, that you haven't really seen like any major like liquidation. Like, yeah, you had the March thing in 2020. You had a few things. I think MakerDAO was the main one there. But what are your thoughts there? Like, if we see, let's say next week, if there's some big development on the, let's just say, like on the international stage, that just all the markets crash and we start seeing liquidations, is that something that you factor in? Is that something that we should potentially factor in? Obviously not financial advice, but is this something you're watching? Is this something that concerns you? Something's going to break on this one corner of the DeFi ecosystem. Next thing you know, all your yields are through the toilet, and maybe you're seeing like these flash loans and stuff, and you're just getting everything. Yeah. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so there's actually a few ways to mitigate those risks, and I always keep it really simple. So you asked, do you foresee some sort of major crash where there's all these liquidations? And the easy answer is I don't know, but the fact that it could happen is something that I'm always prepared for. So I'll say personally, for any sort of borrowed positions that I have, I always am looking ahead and saying, if the market crashed overnight while I was asleep, if it fell 50, 60, 70%, would I survive that? Or would my position be liquidated? And so, I think like that brings us back to the basics of, I of course try not to leverage my entire portfolio. So that's an easy one. But what I do hold leveraged, I look to power tools like Instadap and DeFi Saver. And if anyone goes to DeFiSaver.com, unfortunately, DeFi Saver is only available for Ethereum. I'm pushing the team to add support for the likes of Terra and some other blockchains. But you're able to set a stop loss. They have what are like automation features. And so I'm planning ahead, like I just said. Could my position survive a 50, 60% drawdown? And then BT dubs, if it dropped even further, or let's pretend if it even hit that like crazy of a drop in a single hour, I've got something like DeFi Saver to save me. The sort of black swan events, like what happened with Maker, where they actually had bad debt and had to sell the Maker token and raise funds back in March, April 2020. That's a little bit scarier, but what has been promising since then is that every existential disaster that hasn't ended crypto, that hasn't ended DeFi, has made us stronger, and it's made us, of course, identify new opportunities for new protocols. So there's a protocol called B protocol where it incentivizes more efficient liquidations. And so there's literally a protocol now that's incentivizing better, more predictable liquidations for Aave, Maker, and Compound. And then I'll say that Terra, I've been a little bit closer to this. Terra has a number of teams, like White Whale is one that actually allows you to deposit stable coins, and they use the stable coins to protect the UST peg. So, one of the criticisms of DeFi is that, it's hyper-financializing everything. But if you stick around long enough, you realize that those new opportunities that are incentivized through tokens actually is what's, creating a less fragile ecosystem. There's that many more builders who are like, hold on a sec, I can build that. I got an idea. And you know what? We'll own it through a DAO, and of course we'll tokenize it. And hence there's some upside potentially for them to realize. Aside from, of course, I think the really there are those builders, which I think I originally fell in love with Ethereum, and I've begun to identify those types of builders on other blockchains like Terra, who just are driven by the impact, the mission that they might realize if DeFi is successful and you have billions of people who can permissionlessly access, this whole sort of new finance system. Those are the types of people who are, thankfully, brilliant enough to be thinking ahead about these sorts of black swan events. But anyways, net is the sort of death spiral discussion with UST. That's a real concern for many of us. If you put money into UST with Anchor, of course there's a risk that if the market's crashed hard enough, there's this scenario where you have a death spiral and basically Luna's crashing and then the UST depegs and so on. But radical transformation requires radical risk. So, as long as you adhere to sizing your positions in DeFi yield farms with the understanding that any one of them could be exploited, unless you buy, let's say insurance through something like Nexus Mutual, any one of them could be exploited, and you also could be facing some sort of catastrophic, worldwide market crash that crashes the crypto markets. Does that help? That's a very long-winded answer to a short question.
Well, a long answer to a admittedly very long question.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm conscious of time, so can we get on to the next slide?
Yeah. Let's skip to the next. I'm going to try to skip through quite a few of these too, so we can just keep the banter going. Okay. So, this is a great place for the three of us to really talk more in depth about. In a bear market, if we've already identified there are assets that I hold. Forgive me, I'm going to just keep using Ether as my example, where I know I'm going to keep holding Ether. My goal is to stack Ether. We've heard this also with Bitcoin in the past. There are traders or investors who basically think of everything against Bitcoin. So in my portfolio, whether it is a volatile asset like Ether or stable coins, these are a few of the different ways that I look to earn because I'm not risking my initial deposit beyond, of course, some unforeseen exploit. So we've talked in depth about liquid staking. Deposit it. I know I just continue to earn rewards denominated in the token that I deposited. So it requires just zero effort, no attention. And in some cases, I can borrow against it, which I think is a huge advantage as your portfolio grows over time. Then, of course, there's lending. Lending will always be the classic sort of DeFi use case that draws people in. As you guys pointed out, that's awesome to hear that everyone in the audience has tried Anchor. And I think Anchor will continue to onboard. My hope is hundreds of millions, if not billions of folks. But you've got them, and then you've got a true money market like Aave or Compound and derivatives of those on other chains. One of these tools, though, that I use, I think is less talked about. So I call it a like asset liquidity pool. It just means that the pool is made up of like assets, as in nearly the same asset or assets that are very correlated. So if you have a pool of nearly all stable coins, there is an exchange rate between those, but it's nearly within 1%, hopefully if it's a good stable coin. And so that presents this amazing opportunity to just drop in your stable coins and in many cases earn trading fees. as people trade between them. Often you're earning a reward, like with Curve, most of the LPs are rewarded with the Curve token. And then on top of that, there might be other tools like Convex Finance, which basically incentivizes people to deposit their LP. So classic example of I'm earning 3 forms of yield there, and all I'm doing is depositing my stable coins, and I'm letting, let's say Convex Finance do all the work for me. And then the last few here, or actually, wait, one other thing to note on that. So stablecoins is the most obvious use of like asset LPs. The one that I think catches newcomers off guard is there are pools where you have different types of tokenized Bitcoin, or different types of tokenized ETH, or different types of the Curve token. The point is this: if you can find a pool with, let's say, SBTC, PBTC, RenBTC, and WBTC, those have different uses for different DeFi investors, but you can take advantage of that by being an LP, remaining exposed to that, and then allowing yourself to earn those trading fees. And meanwhile, you're basically just exposed to the price of Bitcoin. There is a very low probability in most cases of these pegged assets depegging, and it's something just to be mindful of. The last few here, I won't talk too in depth about this, but Bancor V3 comes out any day. They are single-sided LPs. Normally, if you hop into a liquidity pairing like ETH and wrapped Bitcoin, you have to bring both tokens to the table unless you zap into it with something like Zapper. But even if you do that, you're technically trading some ETH for wrapped Bitcoin. So what if I could enjoy the benefits of being an LP, earning trading fees, while without having to actually be exposed to the other token or be exposed to any sort of impermanent loss? So the point is, I can basically do the same as lending on Aave, but do it here with a single-sided LP with Bancor, and they will pair the other token with it. So this to me is like a radical shift in how LPs work. I'm still a little skeptical, like everyone is, to see this work in the manner that they've designed it, like whether or not this can hold up against the concentrated LPs on like a Uniswap V3, but we're going to find out really soon once this Bancor V3 goes live. And the last one here, we've talked quite a bit about vault strategies. Deposit, one click, token goes in, and then the vault does all the work for you. Yearn Finance was the trailblazer in this space for vaults, but now we have all sorts of different protocols. One of them I called out here, Spool, is new, but Spool takes into account risk and it gives it a risk score. So I thought that was an interesting tweak on the approach. In full disclosure, my team invested in them at 4RC. Ribbon is an options vault. Now that, with an options vault, if you are selling, let's say, puts or calls and the market moves against you, you can actually lose money on that. But my point is that a vault strategy allows you to automate all of this like very hard work under the hood. So anyways, those are the many different ways during a bear market. All of these should be, working because there's lots of trading activity, and these tend to rely on trading fees while also relying on proof of stake consensus for the liquid staking, which, as long as a blockchain is up and running, you're going to continue to earn those rewards. Guys, any thoughts here? Like anything you think we're missing in terms of ways to earn?
There's something that it's slipping my mind now, but with these, for example, with these staked when you're doing the swaps between, well, I guess really the main thing is that I have a feeling that a lot of people here, when they think yield in the bear market, they think like earning yield on mainly like on stable coins, and maybe because when I see all this, like to me it's logical, but then like to the average, I would imagine to the average person it's like, well, okay, I'm earning 5%, 10%, maybe even 20% yield on Bitcoin, but if my Bitcoin went down by 20% in a day, there goes my whole annual yield. And again, I guess, and you mentioned this earlier, and I guess maybe this is kind of the question along the lines of what I wanted to ask. How do you look at like kind of diversify? Because you mentioned earlier, like you kind of try and diversify the yield. So, not saying how we should do that, but how is that something you look at? Like, is it like mainly stablecoins, or do you just do whatever like you were saying, whatever is above this 20% that you were mentioning earlier? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. We should distinguish stablecoins. Earning with stablecoins is where I think of that anchor rate, and I think, hey, can I earn 18 to 20% or higher? And if I can, then it's an opportunity. There's a few other details too we'll call out around, like I will check something like Nexus Mutual to see if it offers insurance, and if it does, and I can look at the rate and compare it to other insurance rates, that's a signal to me that there are others that are willing to underwrite the risk of me even using that protocol. So hence it's likely a safer protocol for me to use. But going back to your original point around, like, you're holding Bitcoin, and let's pretend I prefer to hold my Bitcoin as wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum or another blockchain. But when I hold it, I personally am still long that little teeny tiny bit of Bitcoin I still hold. I'm long that exposure. So I personally am not worried about that price drop. And so my focus is, how do I earn more of the Bitcoin or wrapped Bitcoin? Same thing with Ether. When I stake my ETH, the point is to earn more ETH because my time horizon is 5 to 10 years. And that's really, like, actually, as you digest everything I've said here, this is clearly coming from someone who I want to take advantage of the opportunity to earn yield now, with where DeFi is in its infancy. But my time horizon is for me to accumulate long-term stores of value like Ether, because I'm looking out 5 to 10 years. And so, stable coins, can I earn more than 20%? But if I am, let's pretend I'm staking an LP from Uniswap, and it's composed of Ether and DAI, and let's just pretend I'm earning some random other token, and I'm going to sell and dump that token for more ETH. I don't care if that token price goes up or down. Now, if it drops enough and I didn't plan to be in that LP, that might be justification for me to get out of it and say, hey, the price of that has dropped so much against this, we'll call it an altcoin, whatever this altcoin is, has dropped so much against Ether that now the yield is just seemingly not worth it for me, then sure, that's time for me to get out. But I focus on how can I earn more stable coins and how can I earn more of whatever my long-term store of value is. And again, for me, it's, for others, it might be ETH or AVAX or SOL or, tends to be those L1 type tokens that people really have a belief will grow from long-term sort of network effects.
Okay, should we move on? Should we have the next slide?
Yeah, let's skip to the next slide. I think we'll be able to skip a few ahead. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Okay, so this goes into we're near the end here.
Sorry to cut you off. We're having a hard time hearing you. Maybe you can move.
There we go. Yeah. There you go. Can you guys hear me better now? Is that good?
It's still a bit quiet.
Really?
Yeah, it's still a bit quiet, right?
Yeah.
Try again.
Weird.
Can our AV team look into that? Is that a problem our end, or we're okay?
It looks like my mic's working okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good now. I think a little better.
Good.
Oh, there we go.
Good.
Cool. Okay, let me know if I cut out at all. We've talked more about what are the assets that one might hold, and hence what are the different channels or opportunities to be able to earn yield with. But we've totally left out the most important question, which, like, is it safe, quote unquote, is it safe to deposit into it in the first place? And these are a few of the ways that I think about that before ever depositing into any yield farm, because there are, and everyone's, you've all lived through it over the last few years, you're going to see you can earn 10,000% on something, but what's been left out is what sort of risk you're taking. So nothing ever replaces this number one point. The longer a protocol has existed without an exploit, the better. Nothing speaks more to how battle tested something is than actually being out there in the wild, having all this money flow through it without any sort of issue. So I would say Curve and Aave are great examples of this. Uniswap's another really great example. And then here's more of a few warnings, because people tend to use different signals as like a proxy for trust, and they should not. So TVL means something to me. I'm happy to see that there's more total value locked in a protocol, but it doesn't mean that it's trustworthy. So good signal, but don't use it to mean that it's safe. Doxed teams, for me, do not equate to it being safer, but it definitely means something. If someone's legal identity is out there, doesn't mean they can't scam us, doesn't mean they can't run away, doesn't mean they didn't come up with some bullshit legal identity. But knowing who they are can potentially help. And on the flip side of that too, that doesn't mean that we should not trust anonymous founders. There are these newborn sort of anonymous founders in the DeFi space who have become very, very reputable. Audits are often used to signal safety. You'll hear teams say we've been audited 2 or 3 times. Nearly all the protocols that have been exploited were audited. So just be aware of that. It means something, it helps, but it doesn't mean you're safe. And then the last point here is something we touched on earlier. I use Nexus Mutual, which, full disclosure, I've been a part of the mutual since 2019, and I continue to hold the token. But I've been a part of Nexus because we have auditing experts on the team, and we have a community who literally, we stake our NXM in order to underwrite and provide smart contract cover, or you could call it insurance, decentralized insurance, DeFi insurance. And so if you look at the rates, the more of us in Nexus Mutual that stake against different protocols, the lower the rate goes. So basically, the more money that we're willing to put up to underwrite the risk of you using it, then that means something. Like, there's an expertise amongst our DAO to evaluate what's safe and what's not. And I'll say that there have been quite a few exploits in the last 6 months which we never were willing to underwrite risk for. And I think the feedback was, why are you guys not providing insurance for this? That's the point of Nexus Mutual or other insurance mutuals in the DeFi space. And the answer is because we always thought it wasn't safe. And look, we were right. That's why we didn't provide cover on it. So you definitely should use that as another signal to indicate what do auditing experts within the DeFi space think of the safety of this protocol. Okay, guys, I guess anything to add there? And we're almost near the end of my slides, and really I want to leave time in case there's any additional questions or thoughts.
I think I'm conscious of time here as well. So do you have is there a video on the channel that we can go to catch up on what you've been talking about today?
Gosh, I would love to eventually link to this video if this video ever gets published. At DeFiDad.com, what I do is I tend to do a lot more founder interviews lately, and I will say, if for anyone out there, if you're looking for, I think, these really thorough reviews of protocols, that's something that I admire about what you guys do at the Coin Bureau, and I've sort of looked to you all to continue to do that. But I have really been looking to try to interview founders about bleeding edge use cases, things that often relate to the metaverse. What is that open metaverse going to look like, where DeFi is the financial plumbing that powers it, and NFTs powers the digital goods that make it up, basically everything that is scarce that you own there. But yeah, I'd highly recommend anyone go to DeFiDad.com. And then also every Friday we publish the DeFi Alpha Guide through the Defiant. The Defiant is another resource that I would recommend to anyone.
Okay, well, DeFi Dad, it's been so good of you to join us today. I think we're going to have to wrap it up from now for the purposes of time. But
thanks so much, guys.
It's been such a pleasure to have you. Do you know, I like to think that I know a fair bit about crypto, about DeFi, about NFTs. But really, when it comes to DeFi especially, and especially talking to people like DeFi Dad, I realize just how much more I have to learn. It is such a dense, fascinating subject, and we're so lucky to have had DeFi Dad join us today to talk through some of it with us. And Dan, thank you to you as well for coming on. I know you were desperate to put some questions to DeFi Dad.
No, I just want to say thanks so much for coming on, and hopefully next time you'll come in person. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys, that's the thing. We need to all get a beer in person. So thank you so much, and like I said, thanks for all the hard work you put into this event.
Thank you.
Likewise, man. You're like, education is the key, and like when it comes to DeFi, like you're doing good work.
Yeah.
I
Subscribe,
appreciate that.
people. DeFi Dad.
guys.
Subscribe to DeFi Dad. That is not financial advice.
Okay.
We have our final discussion for the day, and then we can wrap things up and have a drink, network, and relax and talk to each other. But we're going to do a DAO discussion, and we have some really cool panelists today. We have Elizabeth Ewing, and we have Max Schneider and Luke Niwaki from Kudo. So Guy's going to be here as well talking all about that. So let's bring them on stage. Guys, if you want to come on stage. Yeah.
We'll share a chair, shall we? We'll just kind of hover over it.
Rock, paper, okay. I was going to say rock, paper. No. Rock, paper, scissors for the better chair, okay?
Okay. No, you go 1, 2, 3, bang. Right. 1, 2, 3.
No. Okay.
I'm sorry you had to see that, folks.
Elizabeth, would you mind moving a little bit?
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a privilege to have you here, and thank you for agreeing to come and talk to us this evening. So we're going to have a talk about DAOs, DAO or die. So I want to kick things off, guys. I want to get your input here. I said at the beginning, at the end of last year, like one of my ambitions for 2022 was to learn more about DAOs, because I must admit it's been kind of a gap in my knowledge. You know, I've been aware of them, I've been reading about them, but really my expertise is kind of limited. So I really want to get your thoughts on them, your input. So I'm going to kick off a question to Luke. Why don't you start us off? Is 2022, is this the year of the DAO?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Great to be here. It's a good question. I think it's on a number of fronts. We did have some initial DAO tooling and platforms built back in 2017, 18, Aragon DAO and their famous ICO. I think we could see that. I could see that from the September last year, we've had more and more startups building tooling for governance for DAOs, and I think the DAO ecosystem is growing. I would like to highlight the fact that 2022 is where this whole, and I'm coming from very much the metaverse perspective here, a lot of gamers are getting into Web3, and of course we know that gamers have always had forums and groups and communities. So we definitely see a positive outlook for DAOs in 2022, and it really depends on how the tooling works, if people can organize themselves and create those communities.
I guess, Guy, I think you forgot. Tell us a bit about yourselves. Yeah.
Hi, sorry, hi. So I did a talk earlier on at 2:30, so hi everyone. Great to be in this evening segment. I'm Luke. I am the founder of Metaverse Key, a Web3 product and metaverse consultancy. And I'm here today representing Kudos and Kudos Blockchain, who are one of the sponsors of the event.
Thank you, Luke. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm an angel investor, investing since 2017. Lately, I'm more kind of into GameFi, Metaverse. I'm a early investor of YGG, so I'm quite plugged into the YGG ecosystem. I'm also a founding investor and board of their Latam subDAO, and also building the Middle Eastern Wapmina subDAO.
Hey, Maximilian. I'm a software engineer. I started a DAO last year and helped build it, the software, everything around that. And we launched the DAO on Solana, and since then there's a lot of DAOs there. So I'm intimately involved with all the, I would say, peculiar interests and different perspectives of what DAO means and what DAO can be. Personally, I thought the story was kind of over with the original DAO because it was the attempt to build the software, right? And then that failed, and now we're trying again, right? But I really like how people are willing to go into this experiment together with the people who build the actual code, and even if they don't understand anything about that at all, and seems to have really interesting dynamic, right?
Yeah. Elizabeth, so what got you into DAOs? You know, where did you first hear about them, and what's your, you know, what inspired you about them so much?
Well, the first time was actually back in 2017 when their DAO happened, and unfortunately got hacked, and then, you know, I'm sure you guys also know the story. And then there's this resurgence of DAO pretty much this year. And then there's different kinds of DAOs. There's, you know, the YGG gaming DAOs, and then you have the DAOs to buy the constitutions, and then you have DAOs that's basically governance of a metaverse, like Decentraland, for example. And then you have DAOs that are a bit more social. So it's pretty much like a Discord or Telegram, and it's not even plugged into smart contract, but then it still have this DAO spirit that everyone wants to contribute and do something. So to me, it's very interesting to see how DAO, I thought, is a concept that kind of died and then somehow re-emerged this year, and then now it's really building like the whole DAO communities, different kind of DAO communities is trying to build something. Of course, it's still very early, and a lot of people have a certain idea of DAO and what they want to achieve with DAO and fully democratize. It's not really there yet, but I'm also happy to talk about where DAOs are right now, where DAOs want to be in the future, whether they can achieve that, and what is lacking with, you know, all the experts here.
Yeah. And Luke, what do you think? What do you think what's the direction DAOs are going in? What do you think the next few months, the next couple of years hold for the whole concept of the DAO?
Very good question. It's very hard to predict the future, of course, but we've seen the original ethos of a DAO was that everything, all the governance is fully on chain. Everyone needs to have tokens and smart contracts and so on. We have seen recently, especially with those NFT metaverse projects, that people have DAOs that first organize themselves on Discord. So they don't necessarily start from an on-chain voting. They just have like Discord thumbs up, which sounds a bit like a light version of a DAO. And it has pros and cons. It kind of gets away from this kind of original ethos of a DAO and how internet communities can organize themselves. But on the other hand, it helps them to practice their voting, helps them to, you know, have a few votes and understand how to reach consensus and agreement on the future of the network and product. In terms of the future is very bright, I think. So we see this emergence of the metaverse, the Web3, NFT projects. Better tooling is being built. Millions of dollars are being invested into DAO tooling startups, so people who build technology for voting and so on. That started last year. But we do need to have much more projects that are really sort of DAO friendly. And I do view that DAO as this native way for internet communities to organize together. You can trust an individual without like, knowing them. You can make business decisions, which I think is quite unique in its own way. You can be anywhere in the world, and you can truly govern a treasury and make business decisions and invest together. So yeah, the future is quite bright, but there's a lot of things to be done in terms of infrastructure and tooling, and make it easy to use. So people don't go and vote on Discord, but actually use those tools from the beginning, and are accessible.
And I wanted to ask, you know, in terms of in terms of what the challenges, the challenges facing DAOs and the adoption of DAOs. Obviously, Elizabeth, you talked about how the concept of a DAO has had to kind of recover from the catastrophe of the DAO, all those years ago. But I wonder as well, and I mean, I'm thinking back to listening to Austin Hill, one of the cypherpunk on Peter McCormack's What Bitcoin Did podcast recently. And I was struck. I mean, obviously these are a couple of Bitcoin maxis we're talking about here, but they kind of got onto DAOs, and as you can imagine, they had a pretty dim view of it. But I think they raised what for me was a fair criticism, I think, and that relates, I think, to apathy, really, because we see this all the time, in our democracies. People have these hard-won rights to vote, to get involved, to change the direction of the society they live in, and yet so often we see low turnout, we see apathy directed at that. So, how do you think how are DAOs going to change that? How are DAOs going to engage people more? Maximilian, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think it's right. What we're seeing right now is very easy technical solutions, right? Maybe you have a multi-sig, bunch of people. Maybe you trust each other to a certain extent. That say, oh, maybe 3 people are enough to make a decision. It's very classical and traditional finance. Even then, Citigroup might send $1 billion to the wrong address, and that can happen. And right, these checks and balances, the biggest issue there is like how many people really understand what they're doing and are really aware of the decision and can actually verify that it's a good decision, even when we decide together, right? A direct democracy is always the problem is, does everyone really understand what they're voting for? And I think to some extent this goes, right, in politics we have one human, one vote, and the pure form of democracy. Technologically, we can't really do that right now. It's too difficult to do that on chain, and what people then do is like they have this idea of a larger stake and smaller stake, but usually the stake is also connected with economic value and personal wealth, and it's very hard to disentangle those two things, right? Like a lot of games that we see, they have 2 tokens, they have maybe one for the in-game currency and one for the governance, but then still the governance token has such an astronomical value. I think Stepin is a really good example. It's just blasting and you're like wondering how can that be so valuable, right? And who can have such a large stake given the values at stake? Is it really a fair distribution? Is it really a fair decision?
Yeah, Dan, sure.
I'd like to add on that a little bit, and also it depends on what kind of what the DAO wants to achieve. So, for example, if it's a DAO to build a product, for example, it would be very difficult to consult every single members of the DAO to reach every single decision. Then it's going to be too slow, and maybe the whole direction is not going to be aligned, and to build a product is going to be impossible close to. But then a solution could be maybe all the members can delegate to a small council, so a few people would have the votes from them. So it's not really decided by a centralized authority. It still have a bit of democracy embedded in that, but then at the same time, it still ensure the efficiency of having a small team to work on building a product. But for example, if coinbureau is going to start a DAO, who wants a DAO? coinbureau DAO. Yay! So everyone can vote on what topic Guy wants to talk. Is going to talk about next time. Guy doesn't have to guess what you guys want to watch. So it's a great incentive and a great idea to have a DAO, to have everybody to have a vote. So it really depends on what the DAO wants to achieve. Yeah, that's what I...
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I agree, that especially with regard to building products. I'm coming from a product development background, and yes, initially it's very hard to make design decisions or initial product decisions. You can't just, everyone has an opinion in that situation, and it's very hard to build products that are decentralized in their governance from the very beginning. You mentioned Decentraland, and I've been part of a few Decentraland projects. we wanted to make some changes to Decentraland for our project. It took so much time to vote. The vote didn't go through. It was affecting our marketing timeline and launch, so it has a lot of challenges, especially for building products.
I actually just had, I have a long thought that I'll get back to later, but Max, I actually wanted, because you said that so you're a developer and you made your own DAO, correct? So I'm curious, like, just one of the interesting things is, like, the developers, when they make a DAO, and I don't know, I mean, depends on, anyway, I'm getting on a tangent here. The thing with DAOs that's interesting is, so you made the DAO, like, was it just you who made, like, for example, like, you made the DAO yourself, and now you have all these people participating. Is there not, like, an element of trust in, the fact that you coded the DAO correctly? And I'm not, like, I'm just saying, like, in general, whenever I hear of, like, a DAO, I immediately think, like, who made it? How much control do they have? And it's also, like, at what point do you as a developer, like, really decentralize, meaning, like, you destroy the keys? Is this something you think about? Is it something that, like, because again, there's all these discussions about, when do you destroy the admin keys, right? And this is something that also, pertains to DeFi protocols, but also to DAOs. So I'm curious about your thoughts there.
Yeah, in this particular case, the code was developed actually by Sebastian. I don't know where he is, but I think over there, yeah. he started building it, and the first procedure that we did was to make upgrading that particular code that we started with only possible by the vote of the DAO. And that, of course, means it's super risky because it might take multiple days to update it, right? What we saw with Compound happening. I mean, they're like I think in terms of DeFi DAOs, probably like the gold standard of how you should do it, and it has problems, right? There's security risks, and ultimately that made us move away, at least for the program updates, of the core exchange that we're also developing, Mango Markets. Just decided, okay, that's too risky. Someone can come, and they came with, security exploits, put 100 millions at risk. You don't go to sleep. You don't wait 3 days for a vote, because when you vote on it, everyone knows. You're literally saying, oh, this is how you can steal all the funds. Let's take 3 days to vote if we want to stop having that bug. It's very, like a tricky situation. So I think for simple primitives like the voting program we use right now and the additions we make to it, we feel comfortable to leave it to the whole community to decide over upgrades, because it's the basic contract. It's like changing the constitution, right? And that should only be done by direct vote. And then smaller rules, right? As you said, it's like councils, right? Trusted people, available in multiple time zones. It's all about security in the end. Are we able to act when the situation happens, and are we able to make the decision? Are we able to verify the decision, right? Everyone on that council needs to be extremely educated and able to make the right call within a few minutes, right? They need to read the change, need to read the report.
No, it all makes sense. And then there's something else that you said, actually, or I think it was you, Elizabeth, that mentioned, and this is maybe a crazy idea for maybe not just everyone here on the stage, including myself, because I literally realized it as you were talking, Max, about something that Elizabeth had said earlier. And something that Guy said as well, that one of the issues of DAOs is that there's this apathy, and you even see it, like you said, in voting, that people don't go out and vote, yeah, because they don't really have skin in the game, and for many cases, I think it's when you vote, you feel like your vote doesn't count. And what's interesting is that when it comes to decentralized autonomous organizations, like, what they're fundamentally, a lot of them are just trying to replicate democracy. And I just had this radical idea that it's possible, and I would argue that it's the case, that democracy is actually centralized. Where do all the decisions about what happens in the UK, where does that happen? Does that happen somewhere in the countryside? I mean, again, like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, all the power is here in London. In the United States, all the power is in Washington. And in these DAOs, all the power is in this small council of people that people just delegate their votes to. And so the question is, maybe that's one of the issues with DAOs, and I think that we're going to discover, and maybe this talk will be a part of it, that we are going into, like, this is something, I remember that when I first started talking with Guy, and I started as like head of research at the Coin Bureau, or I guess at the time I was like a little bit lower, sometimes Guy would have like a hard time, and it happens to all of us, yeah? You have a hard time wrapping your head around a concept in cryptocurrency. You think, oh my God, this is so goddamn technical, like only a coder, only a genius like Max over there, only he would understand how it works and how to make it and all the ins and outs, yeah? But in reality, almost everything in cryptocurrency, like many things in life, are just it's just a reflection of things that we all know. Consensus, you and I agree to do something, that's consensus. That's literally the same thing in cryptocurrency, except it's computers that are doing it. So I'm going on a tangent, but basically, I think the issue here, and I'd love to get your opinions here, is that one of the issues with DAOs is that we're going into a DAO assuming how do we kind of create a democratic system where, we're basically it's like you're wondering why there's voter apathy. It's because we literally made the same thing again. We made a democracy that is, by its nature, I would argue, centralized, or at least tends towards that, where, like I said, all the powers here in London, they control what happens in the UK. All the powers in Washington, they control what happens in the rest of the country. And then again, in these DAOs, you end up with a small council, and they're the ones who are controlling everything. Is it time, potentially, or is there a point at which we experiment and maybe think, okay, let's try something else here that could work better? Rather, I'm not saying like, what's the alternative to democracy in a decentralized system? I don't know, but all I know is what I realize here is that democracy is not decentralized, it's centralized. So you can't have a DAO, you can't have a decentralized autonomous organization that is using a system, it's using a philosophy that is inherently centralizing. That's my point. Sorry about that. That's my rant.
Any of you want to pick up on that?
No, it's just like imagine, say for example, Max is running an exchange and somehow, God knows what happened, the exchange is down, like something is down, the office is on fire. So you really need to make a decision on, hey, what to do. It's literally on fire. You cannot ask every single person and then vote, and everyone's going to be, not around to actually make any decisions anymore. So, it's a compromise. I understand exactly what you're talking about, and it's something that we all want to go there, but then with a situation where this is possible, of course, it's better to have everyone to have their own say and then hear the voice, but at the same time, it's also important to consider the actual implication of that.
Yeah, I think I want to add to that, like, what you're describing, right, is like basically humans are most efficient in small groups. Like, to make the hard decisions, you can't have a big group. It's just not how it works. But I think there's the accountability that you have when you have that power, delegated in front of a group. And I think what we see in London or in Washington is you get that accountability through a process of campaign for 4 years, and then it's really not, you really don't need to justify it anymore. It's very rare that someone gets a vote of confidence. And I think that has to do just with the pure mechanics of our voting system, that it's so antique and so much effort. If we had an app to like vote out a politician out of parliament right now, and we could all do it when we like on Monday morning, that would be a big change. And I think we can do that on-chain. So I'm very optimistic that we'll find something that's even better.
I just wanted to add to this. I think I will throw this because I think it's an interesting point you've made. The democracy was really invented for nations and countries that are relatively smaller in size. If you think about DAOs, we talk about the population of the internet. Well, 5 billion people, 6 billion people now. The question I would ask, is it really the best way to copy and paste democracy into a DAO system? Even Winston Churchill said that democracy is the best thing that the humans ever invented, but it doesn't mean that it's the best thing for DAOs. And maybe that's some sort of thinking around that. Maybe there are other ways to govern a DAO that's more compatible with communities at scale that we have.
And another thing, and maybe Max, this is maybe something you've thought about, and also you, Elizabeth, and I imagine, because again, just to refresh my memory, you're a VC or like an early stage investor, yeah? What do you guys think about the role? This is something that Vitalik Buterin, the, I guess, creator of Ethereum, has talked about, is this prospect of like having a decentralized digital identity, which I literally want to throw up when I say it, because when you think digital identity, you think of this, like a like CCP system, barcode on the back of your head. But the reality is that you need, and we're seeing this even now, how Elon is trying to take over Twitter, and the question is how he's going to fight spam, and the answer is he's going to basically force everyone to kind of reveal their identity in some way, be it by putting up a bond of some kind in Dogecoin, or by actually giving their KYC. So is this something that you guys factor in, and that might potentially be a solution? Because I think in a lot of these DAO systems is that what's also missing is this kind of this accountability. It's like you don't know if this account. There's been so many cases where it's like you don't know if the same person is controlling all these accounts that are voting, and one token instead of one token, one vote, one I guess, verified real identity, one vote, and then you're able to do some more elaborate things. Is that something that you're looking at, Elizabeth, in your investment? And is it something that you're looking at, Max, in your development? And is it something that you're just considering also as well as part of your interest, I suppose? Yeah, Leanne.
Well, for me, as an early stage investor, I invest mainly in the team. So if I don't know who actually are the team and the track record, and I cannot put to face to the name, it's very difficult for me to judge whether this person is trustworthy, whether this person is working actually with the other teams, and whether they have the ability to build something that they say that they will build. So for me, it's kind of a red flag if the founder, or at least most of the team, it's a non, they don't dox themselves. So that's my personal opinion. What do you think?
Well, I tagged my wallet. I think it's like, yeah, it depends a bit like how much you lean into post-privacy or these ideas, kind of. I think when you have the de facto role of like an official, maybe not even elected, but to some extent delegated, right, authority, then I think it's good to be transparent. But at the same time, I think there is a lot of just because I think in these like crypto voting systems, there's this monetary value, and people are just afraid of like possible extortion scenarios and things like that. So I also see the other side, and I understand that people are like, yeah, I don't want to have a bodyguard and still stay anonymous. And obviously those people might even have multiple wallets to be able to plausibly deny that they didn't send everything already, right? So there's these. I think like it's always a trade-off, right? But I think ideally, yeah, we would have real-world identities. It would really help, I think.
Yeah, I'll just say it's really hard to control this because you cannot. Anyone can create multiple wallets, and I think this is one of the reasons in typical token projects now you go to a VC and get a like proper public VC to invest in you, so you don't get a token sale and 40% of those tokens are purchased by a VC who will have like resources. I'm not saying that's you, by the way, but for example, it's actually, if you run a token project, it's better to go officially to a VC and ask for a token investment rather than not go for a VC fund investment, and just those VC funds that trust and believe in your project will buy most of your tokens, and then the other traders or retail investors are at the disadvantage then. So I think it's a hard problem to solve. I don't think there's a solution for it. We're trading the ability of being anonymous in this network for not being identified as a unique user. So hopefully maybe there'll be some technology that I'm sure people are working on solutions like that, but no, we can't really ascertain those.
Dan, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, thank you so much. And so Elizabeth, I actually want to kind of segue back because you made a very, very good point, and that one of the, and this is actually, I literally want to like grab the mic from Guy and be like, that's Bitcoin, when you're like, when everything's so decentralized, you can't make any decisions. I'm like, oh my God, that's Bitcoin. Like, it takes like, years and years and years to actually make an improvement. And so that's kind of like the rationale behind having, like this, I guess you could say like vertical structure where you have this council at the top and whatever. And because you actually need things to get done. Like you said, if something's on fire, someone has to go in, especially if it's like a DeFi protocol is on fire, then you have to go in and fix that. So, and I'll pose kind of like a radical idea, I guess, to you guys on here. And I mean, like not to take anyone's like time or thunder or anything, but I'll just pitch this quickly, and I'd love to get your thoughts. I know we only have a couple minutes left. This is something I've actually discussed with Guy, and it's something that if I was a developer, if I was kind of involved in a DAO, this is what I would do. This is how I would kind of, at least in my opinion, solve a lot of the problems that I think DAOs face. So, like, of course, here in the UK, that you guys are known for having a monarchy. Anyone here a fan of the Queen of England? I don't know. I see one hand. Don't worry. I won't point him out in case everyone's like, ah. But
we're all Republicans in here.
But imagine this. Imagine you had this sort of decentralized autonomous organization where instead of instead of like one token, one vote or whatever, let's say you just hold some amount of a token, and this DAO will randomly select, and maybe it'll be based on stake or based on whatever. You do random selection. And this is something that I actually do it as part of my research, and I think it's part of why the Coin Bureau is so successful. And I was even showing Guy this, like, you know, because this is actually my first time in London in 15 years, and guys, like, we've been working remotely the whole time because of this COVID. But what I realized, like, what makes our research good, and something that I've taught, like, to the team as well, is that I try and make it that it's like random selection almost. And what you end up getting is when you do this random sampling, you end up with like you actually end up with a really, and if you think about it, it's actually what a lot of these crypto projects do too, is they pseudo-randomly sample validators for security. So why not apply the same principle to a decentralized autonomous organization? So imagine, I don't know, Shans, yeah, that's your name? So imagine Shans, you're all token holders here, and Shans is randomly, and he's chosen, let's say for 1 week, he gets total control of the treasury with some limitations, and you have like maybe someone who's like watching him. At the same time, you fulfill this requirements where someone can move quickly. You have maybe a smaller group like this council, rather than being in charge, they provide accountability. And especially when you throw in like decentralized digital identities, all of a sudden you end up with a really interesting system where you're incentivized to vote and participate, because it's almost like a lottery. It's like there's a chance that next week you will be chosen, and for 1 week you will have total control of the DAO. You decide exactly what's done with the funds, and there'll be a council in place that decides, you know, is your decision wise or not? Is it in benefit of the greater community? And this is kind of like again, it solves, in my opinion, it solves all these issues, and it's based on literally how I do my research. So that's, yeah.
Is Dan talking sense there, or is he an evil genius?
I think you should do it. That's the only way to actually see whether that works.
Can you give us VC money for it?
We'll take that off stage.
Well, guys, I see people signaling to us off stage, so I think I want to start wrapping it up here. So I want to just pose a what if question to the three of you. So if a YouTube channel decided to create its own DAO, how would you like that to look? What sort of features? How would that look to you in an ideal world?
Look, Guy, you're literally asking a question where a DAO should answer. Yes, so that's
we put it to the DAO.
So we're not the selected council. I cannot speak for that, but I love to see a DAO, you know, where literally everyone can vote on next week or, you know, next video or the next one, which topics you like to hear about, what you want to see more, or, you know, say for example, do you want to see more of the long form content, or do you prefer something a bit more, you know, sound bites? Do you want a token, a Coin Bureau token? How would that look like? Do you want I don't know, I'm just throwing questions there, and I'm a very loyal viewer. I also, you know, ask all of my friends literally, like, thank God for Coin Bureau and guys, like, and the team's effort. Like, it saves me so much time, because I love people that I know, my friends, back in the days, they did not believe in crypto, and now they're all like, you know, tell me Crypto 101, Bitcoin 101, and say, hey, you know, I cannot sit down with you and talk for hours. Go to Coin Bureau, go watch the videos, and come back to me. So, you know, these, I love to see if it's possible for the first almost experiment where a YouTube channel can really engage the users, where users have, you know, skin in the game and really feel a part of the community. I'm sure you guys talk to each other at the conference, like in real life conference, but at the same time, like if it's possible to talk to people, maybe not possible to go to the UK and, you know, somewhere in I don't know, South Africa, to have the community build the you know, circle where everyone is really hoping to achieve something from this community. I think that's, it's not something that I can even imagine. It's really down to the community to evolve into.
Wow. Luke, Max?
Yeah, I think, you know, like social communities and social media, it's very like one way in the beginning, right? I think like you start to produce the content, and then people battle it out in the comments section, and you probably read a lot and like a lot and like are overwhelmed by the amount of input and feedback you get. But I think the feedback is mainly received by you, so it's like ping pong. And what you can do here, right, potentially, is like start a chaotic system of back and forth between the people, because everyone here has a shared interest, right? They came for a reason to your channel, they sticked around, they came to the conference, and I think this is the moment where it's like these connections between those people can finally be discovered.
Yeah. And Luke?
I would also add a brilliant idea, by the way. We've got some OG DAO members here in the audience. But definitely I would start by, and it's a great way to involve the community, by setting your mission, your core values. You're going to organize yourself around having some discussions, proposals, initiation proposal that can be reviewed by at least a core group or the wider community. And I would recommend, apart from using tokens for the DAO, also look into using NFTs to gate access to certain Discord channels or certain specific content, because it's community-driven, it's culturally relevant, and so NFTs are a great way to give something that is just more than just a token. It's visual, you can own it, you can truly own your avatar, etc. So yeah, good luck with that.
Wow, food for thought. Okay, well, in that case, let's finish this by putting it to the floor, putting it to the DAO. coinbureau DAO, yay? coinbureau DAO, nay?
Oh, we heard one.
Okay.
Where are you? No.
We got a lot of work to do. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I've learned so much today. It's been wonderful to have you. I hope you can stick around afterwards for a drink. Guys, I think that is about it for us. So can I give a thanks to our speakers, Luke, Elizabeth, and Maximilian. And of course, our head of research, Dan Krupke. Thank you so much. All right.